because we forgot for like 2 minutes last meeting. Good evening, everybody. This is the Town of Greenwich Planning and Zoning Commission holding a hearing virtually. It is Wednesday, June 21st. And some announcements to make before we start. Just quickly, we have only one postponement, and that is 240 GA LLC for a final site plan and special permit to construct an assisted housing development at 240 Greenwich Avenue. In addition, Mr. Lowe will be stepping out of the meeting to attend another meeting in about 90 minutes. And at that time, an alternate will be seated for him. The alternates who are seated already on applications will remain seated, I think, basically. So our first item tonight is DNF Holdings for a final subdivision to create 3 lots at 137 Dublin Road. Mr. Hegney.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good evening or good afternoon, members of the commission. For the record, Tom Hegney on behalf of the applicant. This has been before you a number of times. We were waiting for 2 main items. One was to have the engineering division review and sign off on the drainage plan, which they have just done. And second, to resolve the conservation comments, which had been submitted. I met with Alexandra Mock. We made revisions to the plan, and she has agreed that those revisions are appropriate given and addressed her comments. We've received approval from the health department for all 3 septic systems. I know there was another letter that came in on not blocking Dublin Road. The advantage that this site has is that it has a long driveway and goes up to a flat plateau. And as you've seen from our phasing plan, the intent is to build the houses in sequence rather than simultaneously. So there's more than ample staging and lay down and parking areas on the property itself. So we will not be blocking Dublin Road except when we need to make underground connections to utilities like the water line. And I think that addresses all of the issues that we've had in this process. So we would ask for your approval.
Does anybody on the commission have any questions on this application?
Not at this time.
Anybody else?
No.
Does anybody object to closing this application at this time?
No.
All righty. Seated on this application are Albin, McRae, Jenkins, Forlevy, Yeski, and Lowe. Mr. Secretary, might we have
Actually, but did you want to take any public comment for you, or were we too late for
Oh, thank you. Okay, so we're I'm about to move that we reopen the application. Anybody objects to the application being reopened?
No.
All righty, we will take a second then. Hello, I need a second.
that? Second.
All right, Mr. McRae has seconded. All in favor, just do a voice vote.
Aye.
Aye.
All right, thank you.
Aye.
All right, with that, the application is reopened. Thank you for reminding me. And Ms. Kelly O'Donnell is the first speaker. And anybody else who wishes to speak on this application, please raise your virtual hand. This is DNF Holdings LLC for a final subdivision at 137 Dublin Road. Hello,
Hi.
Ms. O'Donnell.
Hi, I was just checking in to make sure that that restriction on not parking on Dublin Road is somewhere in whatever the paperwork is. I didn't see it when I looked, but I don't know exactly what I'm looking for.
Does anybody want to comment on that? Nick, you had discussed that yesterday, right?
Yeah, I think we have information in our briefing packages concerning your issues with the staging on the street. And we have kind of put that together as part of our notes in the process in reviewing the application.
I would just add that standard with sign off for zoning permit is that parking on the street is only permitted where allowed, and if there's any closures or anything like that, it would need to be scheduled and organized either with the town, if it's a town road, or with the association or whoever controls it, so that it's not just done ad hoc.
Right.
Also, since we got a lot of issues resolved between the last time that this application was before us and now, I think it's worth clarifying that the last time we discussed this, we had forgotten some of the discussion. I particularly had forgotten some of the discussion that occurred in October, when it was October, right? When we had last reviewed it. And we, the drainage has subsequently been amended to address the issues that had been raised. In addition, although we had originally asked for all the development plans and the construction plans to be submitted to us prior to approving the subdivision, we are now going to include in the motion that Mr. McRae makes, I believe he will move that we have those prior to zoning permit, which would fit the course of events. But the reason we had asked for that at the time was to ensure that the flooding was not going to be exacerbated. And because that was the main concern. In addition, the neighbors who spoke in October asked that, and again have written in, had asked that we have a phasing plan for that we ensure that the phasing plan works for the construction period, and that will also take place. And I apologize, I should have made that clear before we closed the application. Is there anything else, Ms. O'Donnell? And Ms. O'Donnell, I can tell you, we all know from having contractors around, I had to move mine off of the street today. Okay, they were parked in the no parking side of my street. So it usually just takes somebody alerting town hall, and it may take a while to get it addressed. I mean, contractors come in and they do what they do. Just happens. They're busy, they're focused on their work. So just know that even if we condition it, you may have to follow up with us. Anything else, Ms. O'Donnell?
Nope, that's it. Thank you.
All right, thank you. All right, the next speaker is, where did he go? Tomei?
I just promoted him. Mr.
Oh,
Tomash.
you got ahead of me. Okay, Mr. Tomei. Mr. Tomei, if you would unmute.
There we go. Can you hear me?
Yes,
Okay, thank you, everybody. I heard that the drainage plan has been updated. Can we know a little bit more about what the plan is? Because the documents that are uploaded have the older version on there.
I'm sorry, sir. Could you repeat that? I didn't quite hear it.
Yeah, we're just wondering what's going to happen with the pipe. Is the pipe going to be extended longer than in the plan that was uploaded a few days ago? Or is it going to be kept at the length that's in the plan and then the ground scraped out? We just want to know what the new.
Mr. Frangione, I think that's exactly why Mr. Hegney brought you in. Why don't you answer that question?
It certainly wasn't because I'm handsome. Rob Frangione for the record. Yes, so in our conversations with Juan Paredes from DPW, his concern was that if we were to extend the pipe too long, that there might be an unintended consequence of redirection of runoff from one parcel to another. And so what he and I discussed is that we're going to extend the pipe that comes from 90 Dingletown about 60 feet to a head wall, and then let it discharge over ground. The issue that's happening with the neighbors on Dingletown is right now that pipe goes to a catch basin at the tail end of 90 Dingletown, the south end, and then just dead ends into nothing. So what we're going to do is clear that out, put a deep sump manhole, and then just let that go by gravity to the surface. There is, some berms and stuff that's shown on the survey. When we get in there to do the invasive species management and remove that, that's when we'll have a better sense as to if that berm really is creating an issue. We don't think it is, because I've been out there, I've seen the water go down, and I've seen it, under normal flow conditions, flow where it wants to flow. So I think that by coming up with this compromise solution that the neighbors wanted, I mean, the neighbors, correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Tamaj, they just want the water to get out. And so that's what I think this plan accomplishes, is it gets the water out, it makes whole the neighbors to the north, and it satisfies DPW engineering.
Yes,
Mr. Tomasz, do you have any questions on that?
yes. I've been out there a year or two ago when the hurricane happened, and the problem we had was because the pipe is underground, as you know,
Yes,
its way above ground, and then it had nowhere to go because of that berm. All we want is a clear path. If you're not going to extend the pipe where it currently is, the full length, fine from my perspective, but the ground needs to be scraped out so that there is a clear path for it to make it to Boulder Brook Road, because a lot of water goes through there.
And that's the intention. That is absolutely the intention. I've been trying to do this all along, but this was the give and take that we do with DPW. So
Okay.
so the issue was that this application, I had to go back and listen to the last meeting, but the issue, as you all recall, was that this was right after a major flood event, and the properties here were flooding onto the neighbor. And it was identified by everybody that the issue was this pipe. DPW has taken a while to sign off and will hopefully be all right. If not, we will make sure if there's any future problem, we will make sure that someone's on top of it.
And we appreciate that. And I did read the DPW report, and it does say that you can make it 60 feet or longer as long as you stop it before the flow goes in two directions. And it stipulates in there that a path is made clearly. So if that's required, I'm okay with that. Thank you.
and that is
Okay.
what we will do. Yes. Yes.
Okay, and we know where he lives. All righty. Okay, Mr. Tomasz, thank you very much. All right, with that, and my apologies. Anybody else wish to speak? 137 doubling? No, all right. Okay, so with that, we will once again ask you if you object to this application being closed at this time. This application is hereby closed. And now, Mr. McRae, once again, thank you. And if you would put forward a motion.
Okay. Let me get my notes together here. Okay, this is 137 Doubling Road, final subdivision, PLPZ 2023-059. Applicants requested a final subdivision of a 5.6 acre property, create 3 lots and a 36,721 square foot open space parcel located in the RE1 zone. Commission finds that the subdivision PLPZ 2022-438 was moved to final on October 13th, 2022. The applicant meets the standards of section 258, et cetera, of the town of Greenwich zoning regulations. Per section 2616C6, excuse me, the application is a subdivision. The applicant received a variance from ZBA on 11/28/22 under PLPZE 2022-061 as to not to utilize the access way for lots A and C to avoid a wetland crossing and steep slopes. The applicant has submitted an erosion control and construction phasing plan revised dated 5/8/23. Conservation issued comments on 6/15/23 indicating concerns have been addressed. Zoning issues comments on 3/29/23 indicating the proposal meets the requirements of the BZR. DPW engineering issue comments 6/16/23 indicating approval for subdivision. Health department issue comments indicating approval of 6 bedroom septic systems for each of the new lots. And wetlands end issued a permit needs questionnaire dated 9/2/22 indicating no permit required for subdivision. Therefore, a motion to approve with the following comment. The architectural plans shall be submitted for each residence prior to zoning permit. Prior to zoning permit, the driveway utility easement shall be recorded on the town of Greenwich land records. Prior to zoning permit, a note on the erosion control and construction phasing plan shall indicate that no area along the frontage on Doubling Road shall be used for construction other than the utilities connection and pillar replacement. Prior to zoning permitted and invasive species mitigation plan shall be submitted for review and recorded with the town of Greenwich land records. A applicant shall prepare a record sheet in the form of suitable for the chairman of the planning and zoning commission to sign and file with the town of Greenwich land records, and the applicant shall address any outstanding staff or interdepartmental issues.
That was excellent. Does anybody want to add to that or comment? Only one question for Patrick. Is there anything we can do during the process to ensure that the drainage is working as planned? Or
In process,
once the drainage, is there a way that we can make sure once the pipe is placed or at some point, I guess it would be prior to CO, but you need a storm event.
The state review of the design is
yeah.
separate.
So
I'm sorry, I'm getting a second voice. Who is that?
it looked like Mr. Yeski's volume was on. The answer is that there's certification at the end that everything is per plan. I believe for a lot of underground infrastructure, I'm not sure if this type of pipe would be, but there's evidence, during the process before it's buried that it's installed correctly and it's the right size, et cetera, et cetera. So that's built in, but testing it like you're suggesting, I think about, during for a 25-year event or whatever. I don't know. I don't believe that's a process that we typically undertake because the criteria in the design is, that's the reason for the design, right?
Can we build in some sort of inspection?
That's what I was wondering.
A year out?
It's already built in.
Okay,
It's actually already built in.
I thought I might have heard it, but I was going to make almost the identical comment that
Yeah.
our chair made. There's something so that we don't, the neighbors and the neighborhood and the whomever, DPW, all parties have an opportunity to ensure that this, what gets done actually gets done and is effective. And
Right. So
that's
as
not-
Mr. LaRose said, it's already the certification of the construction is something that Mr. Friend Jones supplies at the end, prior to CO, to say the drainage systems have been put in according to the design, and he certifies that. But really, the only way to actually physically test this is to have a rain event, because what this pipe is doing is actually taking water from a lot of different places and bringing it to the pipe.
Mhm.
So to actually do that would be next to impossible. It would seem to me if we wanted to see a test or something, we have to wait to a rain event. And if the neighbors are still getting flooding, that's exactly how we would find out if it's working or not from the
Right.
rain event.
So we just encourage the neighbors to speak up when they get flooded.
I don't know if Ms.
Well,
O'Connell is.
no, I mean,
That's-
the intention of all of the design is to not have flooding under the events that it's designed for, right? So if we have a hurricane, the drainage system is not meant to handle the hurricane. It's meant to handle the 99% or the 90% of the rainfall that we have in the area. So it is not we hope it works. It's designed to work. And if it's not working under the events that we have designed or that the applicant and the DPW has reviewed, then that will be a cause for corrective measure. But there is inspections, there is double checks going on through the whole process. There's just not a process that I'm aware of where we can test it out, is what I thought I was.
Yeah, I understand you can't test it until you get some rain event. My point was, can after a year's time, I think it's quite likely that we're going to have a number of rain events. And is there some mechanism to put in there to just check and make sure that everything is working correctly? And I recognize maybe this can be very informal and the onus is on the neighbors, but.
Well, again, there is always follow-up when there's construction and approvals, that if there's things that are alleged to not be working correctly, that, you know, DPW or ourselves, we go out and we do the look around and make sure that there's not, you know, debris in the pipe, there's not something happened, you know, somebody backed over the you know, with a you know, so that is built in implicitly with the approvals, but you know, if the commission wants
Yes,
a 1-year follow-up, we would have to be, you know, we'd have to track that. And then when would that start? Would that be 1 year from completion, 1 year from installation, that type of thing? So just being
well,
specific would be
so I think that what we need to figure out is at the time of a major storm event, that we somehow do a follow-up post-installation that this has worked. Is there any idea from you, Patrick, on how we might do that?
The most effective way would be to make that a condition of the approval. And we would incorporate that into the development plans, and then staff would do that. P and Z staff, not engineering staff.
Okay, Mr. Wells.
Yeah, I just wonder, now they're putting in 3 houses. I mean, if they put the pipe in first, you know, it's gonna take like 3 or 4 years to finish the houses, I would guess, and hopefully we'd have a couple rain events to be able to test it. I guess it all depends on, you know,
Right.
when are they gonna put the pipe in? Is it at the end of the completion of the 3 houses? Or they do it, you know, first thing?
So are you suggesting,
Well, I think we need an answer to that, which,
okay,
you know, right? Do
Yeah.
you know, Mr. Franjo?
Leroy, Frangione?
Yeah.
Frangione, okay,
You're still on mute.
yeah, there you
I
go.
didn't know if I was allowed to talk because it was closed,
Yeah, we
He's
closed
not-
this already.
He's not allowed to
All right.
talk. I'm sorry.
Okay.
but I can nod vigorously.
No. Okay, sorry.
Sorry.
Just focused on the discussion. Okay, so, my sense is Nick, oh wow, Nick, you just moved clear across my screen. Nick, I'm thinking that we add a condition to this, that after the drainage has been, that somehow or other that staff inspect after the CO on the first house, Patrick? All the
would be-
houses?
I'm not sure which one is the first, second house.
Give me a second here. This is just getting kind of weird to me. So,
Yeah, it is
Hold
getting
on a
weird.
second.
That's, come rescue us.
where is it? It's behind lot. B.
So
That's where the
upon,
pipe is. So it's behind lot B. Okay, yeah, it's the post drainage installation of lot B. We're inquiring a field inspection
yes,
during a rain event.
after a rain event.
Why not just pick a time? I mean, I think, you know.
Don't know. What did the builder goes?
Well,
Yeah, you
That's
don't
the whole
know.
thing, is that we want the
Yeah.
pipe to be in.
Okay.
And we want somebody to go out there after it's rained to make sure that the water that's going through the pipe
All right.
is going where it's going, it's supposed to go. And I think actually
That works.
may even be a note already on the phasing plan.
Mhm.
Okay,
Nick, that works.
Um,
If you just have them prior to this, at the time of prior to CO or something like that, prior to CO, lot B, major storm event, the pipe functioning is verified.
yeah, let's not tie it to prior to CO, because actually what's gonna happen is that if they're ready for CO and
Yeah,
it hasn't rained, they never get their CO until somebody runs out, and we're waiting
yeah.
for
okay.
it to rain
All
for
right.
them to get a CO.
So, go ahead.
Global warming.
So we can move
right?
on.
So it's post drainage installation of lot B,
Okay,
field inspection after a rain event.
okay. See if that
Uh,
works.
Patrick,
Because it was
just-
flooding with no construction. So if that's really what we're looking for.
just my thought, our staff or engineering staff? Because
Yeah, I
I'm
know,
not-
but Juan's not here for us to commit him that he's gonna
Right,
go
right.
inspect it.
And I can't force other departments to go out and inspect
Yeah.
things that are not under their you know,
If
that are
our
not-
staff found a problem where there's wet stuff
Right.
everywhere, then our
Right.
staff would talk to Juan.
Right.
So our staff is enough because, you know, if they need to wear boots, they'll know. They don't need to go to college for that one. Okay. Sorry.
But my mother's happy I did, Madam Chair, so.
All right. Okay, do I have a second now that we sort of have that amendment to the motion?
Second,
Okay, Mr. Lowe has seconded. Mr. McRae, how do you vote?
Aye.
Ms. Jenkins,
Aye.
Mr. Yeski,
Aye.
and Mr. Lowe?
aye,
And with that, we move to the next application, which is as for me and my house for a final subdivision to create 2 lots at 27 Richmond Drive in the R7 zone. Seated on this application are Albin, McRae, Levy, Yeski, and Lowe, who is taking back, he has listened to the transcript or read the transcript, and he is taking back his regular seating. Mr. Hegney.
I'm sorry, Madam Chair? Did
Yes,
we-
sir. Yes,
we
ma'am.
finish the voting on number 1? Did we finish the voting on that?
Yes, ma'am. Did
Okay.
I not vote?
Margaret, you did not vote.
Albin is also an aye, and with that, the motion passes 5-0. I don't know
There
what's
you
wrong
go.
with. All right. Spaced out.
It's
All
quite
right.
the team effort tonight. I just want to point out already.
What?
It's quite the team effort tonight.
It is, because when you have a spaced out chair, that's what happens. Okay. All right. Okay. Mr. Hegney.
Thank you, Madam Chair. For the record, Tom Hegney on behalf of the applicant. This is one that I want to say right off the bat. There are a number of items that we need to be addressing with conservation, not so much conservation, sightlines and zoning enforcement. I have been in touch with the zoning enforcement officer on this and expect to resolve that hopefully shortly. And I've reached out to the tree warden regarding sightlines on the street, but I do not have those resolved tonight. So we would ask that the commission convert this to a preliminary plan so that we can have the time to address those items and return to you. There's also the need to provide a driveway and drainage easement between the 2 parcels. I don't see anything here that is insurmountable. I went out to the property last night while it was still light and saw that the sightlines are achievable so long as an invasive bush is removed in the right of way. And I have corresponded with the tree warden, and he has indicated his willingness to approve that bush removal. It's a barberry invasive bush that's there, and that will free up the sightlines that were an issue for the town engineer. I don't see an issue with the zoning enforcement officer's comments. I did send a letter to him today outlining what I believe is the existing and proposed square footage for the existing house and the lot that it will remain on. And it's something like half of what's permitted with that size lot. So rather than going into anything further, we would ask that you make these items conditions on a preliminary proceed to final, and that we address them and come back to you with a final plan.
Mr. Hegney, yesterday there was a discussion at the briefing about the situation with the trees and whether some were unhealthy and some were healthy, and therefore which you should protect and which not. Will, in this time that you are addressing the other issues, will you have someone look at the trees and report and provide an analysis of what should be protected?
Yes, we can retain the services of an arborist and have
Okay.
him review the condition and prepare a report as to his recommendations.
Yeah, and in fact, you're going to have as I recall, you have to contact Mr. Kramer, Dr. Kramer in regard,
I have already.
okay,
I did correspond with the tree warden today
okay.
on the sightline issue.
Okay, so you've already gotten in touch with him. You will
Mhm.
address the other issues and you will get an arborist regarding what trees are to be protected and which are no longer viable, which is, I think, what was puzzling people.
Yes, and a standard arborist report will contain all that information.
All righty, thank you. I'm gonna turn to public comment then. And does anybody wish to speak on this application? This is 27 Richmond Drive, which is converting to a preliminary subdivision. Does anybody wish to speak? Please raise your virtual hand. Okay, this time, no. All right. So with that,
Real quick,
Yeah.
Mr. Hegney, favor to ask. As part of the discussion of the trees with the arborist, et cetera, if you can develop just a tree taking plan so it's very clear so you can see what's going on. Just so we
That's-
can stem any confusion down the line of what's staying, what's not.
So we would have an identification of all of the trees in the development area. We would provide for a arborist to identify them, describe their condition, make recommendations for each of them, and then would include that in a report that we would submit to you. So all that would be part
along
of it.
with a replacement plan, because as Mr.
Yes.
Leroux was pointing out yesterday. Okay, Mr. Levy, you wish to add something?
Yes, if I may, I want to understand, there seems to be a fence that wraps much of the property. I'm assuming that it's
Patrick, could you put that up? Or
that it's
somebody?
part of the ownership of the applicants, but I'm just curious because it goes on and off the property. So I just was curious about that.
Mr. Levy, can you ask that again? I'm sorry, I just need to pull up the picture.
The location of the fence, Mr. Levy was wondering about the fence that goes around the property and how it,
I'm looking at slide 13.
Thank you.
Or if you pull up our presentation material, slide 2, Pat.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Hegney.
I would just add that in older neighborhoods, oftentimes fences do meander over property lines. And I think if you look at this one on the south side or left side of the property, there's a stone wall, and it runs right on the property line. In the rear or on the east side, you can see it meanders a little bit over the property. Oftentimes these occur because there's either a rock outcropping or a tree or something else that's in the way. And again, on the north side or right-hand side, you can see it wanders a little off the property in that northeast corner, the lower right corner, and then again up on the nearer the road. So.
and what was your question, Mr. Levy? on
I'm
that?
just curious how if there's anything for, this happens from time to time, but I just was curious if there is anything that we need to kind of address or ask about, because they go on, if this is the property owner's fence and it goes on to somebody else's property, I assume it's just an issue between the two property owners.
That's correct, Mr. Levy. This is a private matter, and over the years, having handled dozens of these, sometimes we move the fence, sometimes we do an easement. In contentious matters, you have adverse possession claims.
Right.
The fence has been there,
Mhm.
and the owner has been treating that in an open, notorious, and hostile way toward his neighbors for a period of 15 years, he can claim it. I find that most of these work out without getting to that stage.
Okay.
Right, and the other thing is, can you just comment on the placement of the conservation 800 feet of conservation?
If we can go to, I think it's slide 8.
Yeah.
Pat. Or if we could just go to slide 7 first, because I put this one in because what I've been doing with the IT department is asking them to overlay the original subdivision map on our GIS. So that's what you see here. And what you realize in looking at this is that the neighborhood has developed very much along the lines of the original subdivision.
Yeah. Yeah.
Except for one across the street at 20.
Which is steeper.
And 22 and 24, where you have a front and rear lot, which is what we're looking to accomplish. But I just wanted to share this with you because I thought it was interesting to see how a neighborhood really does develop the way it was originally designed in 1925. This shows the on the upper left-hand portion of the property where we're proposing the conservation easement area. And if we go to Bill Kenny's plan, which is slide 8, he does show how that would be landscaped, and we'll work with Mr. Kenny on the landscaping with involving the trees as well.
And that's the key. If as Petra pointed out yesterday, to be replacing the trees that you would need to remove, and also, as I recall, the conservation analyst is satisfied with where you have located the open space. So it'll just be a question of us looking in terms of what you're doing with the property,
Certainly.
with the open space. All right. And
Okay.
she had some comments on it. Okay. All right.
Thanks for the
So-
explanation.
Okay, it looks like we have somebody who wishes to speak now on this application. This is for 27 Richmond, Margot Kimball. Hello, Ms. Kimball. If you would unmute. Hello.
Hi, sorry, I'll start my video. I'll keep it short this evening. I know I sent you a lot of comments. Just in regards to the fence that's meandering back and forth. I believe that's
Yes.
actually, if it's on the north side, I believe that's actually our fence. So it's fine. It's going in and out of our property. The reason it angles so much at the base is to accommodate the trunk of a dogwood tree, which may or may not be. I'm not sure exactly whose property that's on, but that's the deal with the fence. And that's all I have for you this evening.
Okay, great. All right, no other comments on the application itself.
Not at this time. Thanks.
All right, okay. Thank you very much, ma'am.
Thank you.
Okay, with that, I don't think we have any other public comment on Richmond Drive. All righty, does anybody object to closing this application? Oh, I'm sorry, we are leaving it open. I'm doing that again. We are now leaving the preliminary application open.
Actually, Madam Chair, my request was that we convert it to a preliminary. There is no more time.
On the
Normally, I
final.
would say, please just extend it to the next meeting, but I don't have time to do that anymore because we've run out of the statutory time period. So that's why I'm suggesting that we can, and
So
requesting
we will
that you
just,
convert it to a preliminary and that you vote on it on a preliminary basis with the conditions that we've been discussing. And that we would then come back to you with a new final application
why
plan
would
to
you-
address those.
okay. Okay, I gotcha. No, I missed that point completely. I'm sorry, Mr. Hagney. So what you're saying is you wanted us to open and close the preliminary tonight. And then you're
And
gonna come in,
hopefully vote on it
And
as
then
to
you're-
proceed to a final plan.
and then you're gonna come in with a new final. Okay,
Yes.
I was figuring we could, okay, fine. That'll work for us. All right, so Mr. McRae, so what I missed that. I
Yeah,
thought we
I
were
got
just
it. I
gonna
think-
leave it as a preliminary,
No.
but, and not close it tonight.
Okay, I think it's basically closing the preliminary and proceed to final kind of thing.
Yeah, it would be a proceed to final with all the conditions that we've discussed.
Okay, well, let me make a
Which I
stab at
guess
this
makes
and
a
then we can get
lot
going.
of, a lot
Yeah.
of sense.
So 27 Richmond Drive, PLPZ 2023-0057. Motion to approve preliminary, proceed to final subdivision.
To move the
Uh,
preliminary to final.
Move, yeah, that's what I said. Okay, good,
Yeah.
that's fine. To address any and all outstanding interdepartmental and staff outstanding issues.
Mhm.
I think that kind of blanketly covers everything. That
Right.
way the applicant can go and get whatever they need from each department and
Right.
return at a later date.
But just in case we forget, that let's just go through it quickly. The applicant is going to provide for the driveway.
Right, sightlines, FAR,
Exactly, is going to address the
Um,
sight line prior to returning for final, when the applicant returns with the final. They will have addressed the sight line issues that are currently outstanding. They will be meeting with the tree warden to address those. They will also be obtaining an arborist who will review the current tree status and provide recommendations for replacement and protection where necessary. In addition, the applicant will review the open space planting. I believe they've already started that process from what I remember of the application, but we'll finalize the open space planting and treatment and landscaping for the site for that area. Not really landscaping on open space. Is there anything I forgot?
I think that's it.
Started on the wrong foot tonight. All right. So those would be-
we got the sightline distances, right?
we got the sight lines. That
Okay.
was the key thing holding it up. Ms. Jenkins, did we forget something?
FAR?
I
FAR,
think- Yeah, I think we
Oh,
got
my,
that.
okay, just to make sure, whereas there has been a concern that the FAR of the existing building may not be compliant, applicant must verify with the ZEO that it has been brought into compliance prior to subdivision.
Mhm.
There you go. That was the other thing we were missing. All right. Starting to fire on more cylinders. Mary, did you want to add something else or is your hand still up, just up?
I'm sorry, I'll put my hand
All
up.
right, all right. All right. And, okay, so with that, do I have a second?
Second,
No, Mr. Levy. No, you're good.
I'm good.
You're good. You're good. You're good. All righty. Mr. Levy has seconded. Mr. McRae, how do you vote?
Aye.
Mr. Yeski,
Aye.
Mr. Lowe,
Aye.
and Albin is also an aye. All right. Thank you very much, everybody. And-
I now yield to Mr. Cohen.
Yeah, he's gonna
long
finally
as he
get his
yields
place
to
in
me when he's
time.
done.
Yeah. Yep. All righty. I'm gonna do a sound check. with
Marguerite, I still only had 4 people vote on that.
Albin, McRae, Levy, Yeski, and
Oh,
Lowe.
Levy, okay, sorry, my fault. You were all misfiring. Got it.
Sound check, Mr. Basili?
Sounds good.
Okie dokie. All righty, now we open the public hearing. Our first application, oh, what, we need Mr. Cohen though. There he is.
You should be traveling through the interspace.
He's interspace, cyberspace. Hello, Mr. Cohen.
Hello again.
All right, Mr. Cohen, we are now opening the public hearing. We have 2 applications from Greenwich Country Day. I believe you were amenable to hearing them combined the last time.
Well, actually, I think we did it separately, but I'm amenable to
Let's
have
keep it, well, we can do it
mine right
separately.
now. This is good.
Okay, so we will combine these applications. The first one is Greenwich Country Day School for final resub. 401 Old Church and 50 Fairfield Road. The second application is Greenwich Country Day School for a final site plan and special permit at 401 Old Church Road in the RA1. And with that, this, you may proceed, Mr. Cohen.
Thank you, Ms. Alvin. Bruce Cohen, again, representing Greenwich Country Day School. This is a continuation from a hearing that opened on by the commission at its hearing on May the 23rd. The two matters are tied together. The first matter relates to a request by the applicant for a determination that a proposed lot line revision is that and does not represent a subdivision or re-subdivision. This determination is important because in order to support the proposed enlargement of the school's gym, which is the second listed item, the school needs to transfer one parcel from another that it controls under a separate name, thereby allowing for an important increase in available FAR, which will result if the proposed site plan and special permit are approved, will result in a very slight improvement of the overall campus FAR. And by the way, there's also a small improvement in the green area. So the first portion of the application was continued at the last hearing in order for the commission to seek counsel from the town's law department, which I understand has been done. The second part, which relates to site plan special permit issues, had a couple of open matters that I'd like to address. The first issue had to do with the fact that because a new grade plane calculation was required following the erection of the new gymnasium section, there was an increase in computed but not actual height. And so because of that, the zoning enforcement officer and this commission believed that a variance of the height requirements to allow this improvement to take place was required, and that a variance was sought and unanimously granted. Another open item that I heard discussed at the briefing had to do with the school's plans for installation of EV stations, charging stations. As you know, the school, which has always been extremely conscious of its environmental obligations and it has always dealt with them as an important part of its academic function, has installed EV stations as they seem to have been required. As of right now, there are 4 on the main campus. It's a little tricky to determine what the needs are going to be at different areas because the parking for the main campus at 401 Old Church Road, as you'll note from the surveys that we filed, are located in clusters, groups of parking areas. And so we have 4 that have been installed in the main campus. We've installed 4 more at the Schwartz campus across the street in the vicinity of the staff housing and daycare center, 4 more at the high school campus at Sandwich Road, and the school as the need requires, and that locations that are needed will continue to install charging stations as they go along. A third item that was discussed had to do with construction phasing. We have provided a construction, or at least I would say a preliminary construction phasing plan from Turner Construction, who will be managing the construction. activities as they have in the past. They estimate a total construction time of 12 months to begin, hopefully, subject to granting of all permits and approvals to begin in September and end in September of the next school year. We don't believe it will interfere with what the kids are doing at the main campus. There are other gym, although undersized gym facilities available for them. Turner's been very good about handling construction logistics in the past, and we will file a very detailed plan if it's acceptable to the commission when we seek our zoning permit. So with that, I'd be glad to try to answer any other questions that the commission may
So
have.
just before we start asking questions, Mr. Lowe, if we run a little bit past 5:30, can you stay? We'll try to get,
Sure.
okay, so we'll try to get finished. We've got 40 minutes, so we should be able to finish. So therefore, we will have seated on this application, we will have Albin, McRae, Jenkins for Levy, Lowe, and Wells for Yeski, who is recused because he has a personal conflict with this. Second, we did so on the resub, we did get an opinion and actually have a lot of discussions with the law department. And the easiest resolution, Mr. Cohen, is that the concern I was articulating was around 48 Fairfield no longer existing and coming in and now being restored. I think the easiest thing is you are not proposing this lot for sale or development, and therefore this would not rise to a subdivision, correct?
That's correct, yes.
And then second, as regards the lot line revision, the commission has generally not applied, in spite of Katie, has not applied the substantive diminution consideration, and therefore it would not rise to that, to anything other than a lot line revision. So it would be, it would seem based on that, and that's the analysis that I shared with the commission yesterday. I don't know if they agree, but that's where I was on the analysis. In regard to the site plan, I believe that you did obtain that variance for the height, and that you will, and that will protect you on the height of that you're going to with the way you're designing the building. And finally, what you are accomplishing, and you made this point already, but just to be clear, you are currently you have a non-conforming FAR at this moment that you will end up protecting and keeping your status with the non-conforming FAR by the way you are handling the lot line revision. So you're not increasing your non-conformity, but you are not giving it up either. Would that be correct?
Correct.
Okay, so those are the points I had on that. Does anybody else have any points?
I think, actually, now going through all of this and understanding, I think actually what had been confusing to me was the end result. But I think I understand what the end result is. The final DeAndrea map shows that from the 2015, and correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Cohen, the 2015 map, there were some kind of lot line revisions, putting more land area into the main campus.
Into 401.
Right. And now we're actually kind of expanding that and we'll have a leftover of a very kind of cobra shaped lot, if you would, surrounding the house that's out there. That's the current proposal from 2015 to now.
Right.
I'm correct on that? That's what it's
Yes, you
supposed to
are.
be.
Yeah.
So the final map is this one from the DeAndrea office with this, excuse me, but a goofy looking property shape surrounding the house, just the house itself.
One of the questions that that I was studying in this is whether there was a way that they could protect their non-conforming FAR and keep all the property as one, because that would be the easiest. The concern is what happens down the road, because their FAR would then drop. What happens down the road when they want to go back up to the non-conforming levels? Theoretically, they don't lose the non-conformity ever, right? Because they're protected as long as they're not, as long as they don't say they're giving it up, the way the state law was clarified, they don't lose it. It's protected. But what they're doing is belt and suspenders. They are assuring that their non-conformity remains protected, and that we don't say, wow, you have conforming FAR. Why would you want to go to non-conforming? Which is, of course, what we would likely do. Because we would, 5 years from now, we wouldn't remember that they had a non-conformity that they had a right to retain, and they would have to argue with us. Now, I believe that we would have to cave because the state law protects their right to the non-conformity, but they're playing it safe. I would rather have you just keep 48, Mr. Cohen, but I understand why you're not. So anything else from the commission?
Just a real quick question.
Yeah.
Mr. Cohen, lot 48 is in separate ownership from the school?
It will be when the transfer is complete, subject to approving the lot line revision, yes.
Okay.
So
And
what
then
should,
the right of way from parcel A, the former right of way from parcel A that kind of snakes out to Fairfield Road, that is to be abandoned on at 48 as well?
yeah.
Correct.
Okay, so
The right of way is going to be abandoned with respect to 50. It will still serve, it will be there will still be an access way from 48 directly to Fairfield Road. It shows on, I think, the third image that we sent to Patrick, if you'd like to see it.
Well,
I'm
Patrick,
looking
while
at the
you're
DeAndrea
just
map.
Patrick, if you would pull that up real fast, I'd like to ask Mr. Cohen a quick question while you pull it up. Mr. Cohen, as ever, the construction phasing, and one of the things I would like you to consider during the period is to get all vehicles away from the street to manage so that you don't impede traffic during the area school drop off and pickup, because you know what you're competing with in that neighborhood. So just as you look at your phasing plan and how you will handle construction, that whatever happens, that the vehicles not be obstructing traffic. And the school's been really good. I know when they worked on the lower school, it went very well. So go ahead, Mr. McRae, the map's up.
Okay, so the gray as we see it, that's the new area, and the tail of that gray area is the right of way. So the right of way.
That's how it's going to be. Pat just showed what's
Right.
going to happen.
Right, so that right of way disappears as well. Okay,
Right.
great. Thank you very much for that clarification.
And in answer, Ms. Alvin, to your comment, Turner's expert at handling
Yeah.
these things, and we have a fortunate condition that there is an area right next to the construction area that can be used for staging and a construction staging. You'll see there's a nice big flat field there that they're intending to use.
Okay, all righty. Anything else from the commission? All right, is there anybody from the public who wishes to speak about the Greenwich Country Day applications? There are two applications. One is a zoning application for a site plan, and the other one is a subdivision application. Anybody from the public wish to speak? Please raise your virtual hand. Seeing no one, we will, okay, I believe we could close this application. There are no further questions at this time.
Are we closing both at the same time?
Yes, we would be closing both at the same time. Does anybody object to closing these applications at this time?
No. No.
All right, these applications are hereby closed. Mr. Lowe, when we will wait for you tonight. In case,
I'm not-
so for when you,
not-
if,
Yeah, go ahead.
well,
Oh,
when we,
okay, so we're not voting on this now, I understand.
no,
Right.
because it's in the
Right,
public
it's
hearing, so
public
we
hearing.
will wait for you. We will let you know when we're ready to vote it, and if you can jump back in for the
Yeah,
vote, that would be
if-
great.
If I'm not already back.
If you're not already back. Thank you very much, Mr. Cohen.
Thank you.
Because we may be tapping him shortly. Oh, Marianne Ramos has her hand up. Ooh, we closed this. Let me see what she needs. Ms. Ramos, did you want to speak about Country Day? Because we just closed it.
No, ma'am. I thought you had changed to the Glenville.
No, I'm about to announce the Glenville, and when we do the Glenville, we will discuss it. The commission will ask their questions, and then we will ask everyone for public comments. So just give us a few minutes. We have a whole bunch of questions we want to ask first, and then we
Thank you
will
very
turn to
much
you.
for your attention.
Thank you.
Good.
Thank you, ma'am.
Okay, that was.
All right. Okay. So the next application is 9 Glenville Street for a final site plan and special permit to demolish the existing garage and dwelling on a property and construct a mixed-use retail and residential building, which will have 8 mixed-use. I'm sorry, we'll have 4 dwelling units on the 2nd and 3rd floor, for a total of 8 dwelling units, of which 1 will be a moderate income dwelling unit at 9 Glenville Street. Again, this is 8 total dwelling units with 1 as moderate income. Moderate income, as a reminder, is geared for the average Greenwich employee salary. The goal of this regulation in which we do this is so that people who work for town can, especially teachers, police, everybody who's employed, and town hall, folks who town can live in town. With that, who will be presenting the application? Well, it's Mr. Hagney, who I'm not going to confuse with Mr. Cohen anymore. Mr. Hagney, if you would turn on your mic and your video.
Thank you, Madam
And
Chair. If you could also bring
Mr. Rydberg, perhaps. I
Mr.
know-
Rydberg in, please. Yes.
Mr. Rydberg, would you kindly raise your virtual hand? I'm not seeing you. Ooh, not seeing him. We definitely have questions for him, as you know. So could you grab him? And he probably doesn't think we would move this quickly.
He's in the room now, Madam Chair.
Okay,
I'm trying to promote him.
Okay, good. All right, so Mr. Hagney, 9 Glenville Street, if you would.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Members of the commission, for the record, Tom Hegney on behalf of the applicant. This is a property that you've seen a few times. First in 2020, when we submitted an application to rezone the rear portion of this property from R12 to LBR2. That was approved by the commission in 2020. Then we submitted a pre-application in 2021 for a mixed-use building. That was, we then went ahead and submitted a final application in 2022. We had some initial comments from the commission. And the main one being, you better go talk to the Historic District Commission about this because of the buildings that are on the site and because of the historic designation for the neighborhood. And you need to speak with them, deal with them. And once you've done that, then come back to us. Well, that has taken us a little while to do. So we're back a year later from when we saw you last on this one. We had 3 meetings in the fall with the Historic District Commission. We went through and analyzed, and Mr. Rydberg can go into this, what is the predominant type of exterior cover in Glenville, and it is red brick. And so the first plan that Mr. Rydberg submitted to the HDC was with a red brick building. And I'll let Rudy go through with the experience we had with them and how it evolved into the building and facade that we now have before you. Rudy, if you could, and Madam Chair, just at the beginning, I want to say I didn't have Mr. Adler attend this evening. We very much want to hear, as you do, what your traffic consultant Beta has to say. I know from comments both by the commission and by people in the neighborhood that traffic is a significant issue that everyone wants us to discuss and address. Without getting those Beta comments, I thought it would be premature. We obviously are not going to request a closer or vote on this tonight, but I thought I'd take the opportunity to really go through the discussion we had with HDC so that you'd understand where we're coming from.
Just as regards the traffic, one of the things that we were particularly concerned about and that was raised by staff is that even having done the counts during August when everybody's away and school's not in session, you were still having a significant degradation of the level of service. That means that when school is in session and it's peak season, it would be more significant or potentially more significant. So we're looking forward to what had been asked of you that by DPW is to what could be done to mitigate this. I've got a question I'll ask you later about it. A little bit complicated, but if you're ready to go ahead with the rest, we'll come back to that.
All right, very good. If Mr. Rydberg can go through with you how we got to where we are today with the building design. Rudy?
Great. Thank you, everybody. Thanks, Tom. Thank you, Pat, for putting some of these things up. That would be great. For the record, Rudy Rydberg, Rydberg Architects. This is a context photo that we submitted to HDC. As Tom said, we went through 3 hearings with them. The first one was an all brick building, which is what this one is intimating, I'll call it for lack of a better term. We then met with them and they said, you know, we don't really think we want all brick. What about if we looked at all wood? And then there was a discussion about whether we could be brick and some wood siding and so on and so forth. So if you look at this building here, from a scale point of view, there is a building directly to the left that, believe it or not, is similar in height. It's not as wide as our building, but it's similar in height. And then further to the left, you get towards the Glenville Deli, which is basically a 1-story building. And to the right of our building, the property slopes off quite a lot as it goes down to the river. But if you could open up, Pat, sorry, let me.
So, Mr. Rydberg, just if I may be clear, as I see it, how much higher does the proposed building, how much higher is it than the building you're showing in comparison? How much higher will it be?
Our building we're showing up, our building is shown at the correct height. I was going to see if there happened to be, believe it or not, the Victorian that is there is quite elevated.
My question to you is the building that you're showing illustratively next to it, the yellow one.
Yes. Yeah, that's a photograph. That building is 3 stories.
And how much lower do you figure that the peak of that roof is than the proposed building?
Than ours, I would maybe say it's probably maybe 5 feet. It's really our building. We've set it lower than the building that's there currently at the Victorian.
Okay.
I don't know, maybe you could look at the second, go down to the second row, Pat, that one there, and then the next one in. Okay. That building is quite tall. And I know when we don't have here the presentation we made to HDC. But HDC presentation, we had one where we dotted in the line of the existing Victorian dwelling, which is really quite tall. We are still a little bit higher than that, but we're still, in comparison, we're not that much taller. Also on this picture, if you could just go down to the bottom rows a little bit, you could see there's the mill, where Centros was, the new restaurant, I forgot the name already. It's all brick. The building that's on the corner down by the river, the middle one there, country table, that's all brick. Across the street, all brick. And then as you meander downtown, we had many more photos we showed to HDC, which we also had a graphical plan showing all the downtown buildings, the firehouse, the former bank building, the pharmacy, the gas station. And then you go into the new building that was built next to Vinny's Pizzeria, partially brick. And then, of course, Glenville School, well, I'm dating myself there, the Civic Center, and so on. So we thought they wanted it to be brick. But Pat, can you pull up the slide number 6, if you don't mind? And it's A 0.0. It should be the one rendering that shows the 3 views of this building.
That's on the full presentation material that I sent over, Pat.
I thought this is
And
the
I-
file that I opened here, so let me, give me 1 second.
Yep. Rudy, while we're waiting for Pat to bring that up, if you can go through what ARC's reaction was. and-
HDCs, yeah.
I
So-
mean HDCs.
That's okay. Yeah, so we came back to first time we met, showed them an all brick building, and all of them in unison said, we really don't think we have to have all brick buildings in Glenville. What else can you come back with? So we came back with they said, please come back with the all brick and an alternative showing with some siding. So we came back at the second hearing with an all brick building still. Then we came back with a building that had partial siding and bricks. And all the schemes, we wanted brick to be on the lower level. We wanted that to be the retail floor. We thought that anchored the building. And then up above, we came back with siding. Now, this changed a couple of times because we used the combination. This is the final design that they approved and felt comfortable with. We had a more mixture of shingle siding and with some panels built in. So in the middle of that building, you can see there's a panel in the middle of the building for that middle unit. We also variegated the building, stepping back forward and back a little bit rather than one flatter facade to give the building some interest, some scale. It also, broke up the roof lines up on the roofs and so on. So on the third time try was a charm. They liked this one. They liked the fact that we had the, retail separation. We had a nice opportunity for signage, for awnings. And we did articulate some trim details of brick and corbelling of brick at the second floor level. And then we also talked about how historically we were using some of the roof brackets underneath the roof overhang that sort of mimicked what was happening over at the mill. So this was the final design, and this is all 3 sides. This shows that the left one shows standing in Glenville. And sorry, I keep getting too many calls here. Sorry. Can you still hear me there? I don't know.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay,
You're
so,
fine, Rudy.
Yeah,
Sorry,
well, we know how you feel.
and then the next one to the right is standing at the back on Angelus Drive, showing the back of the building that has the parking tucked underneath the overhang of the second floor and third floor above. So we have our recessed parking there. And then in the bottom one, that's standing with my back, say, to the firehouse, and that's picking up Angelus Drive and on the right and Glenville Street on the left. You can see all the landscaping that we've been able now to build in with Matt Pop's design. We have the entrance there to the underground parking for the tenants, for the residential tenants. There's an underground parking garage there, and then around the corner, we would have on the upper right one there. Again, you see the parking that's well landscaped at the rear of the building. So this was what we finally came back with, and they thought that this was appropriate, that we still use the brick as homage to the area, but that we lightened it up and kept it into more the vernacular of a residential feel building up above. And traditional double hung windows and so on. So, yeah.
Okay. There were several people who had comments. So we're going to talk to you about traffic, also the conservation comments, and they have a lot to do with where the building is set, of course, because of the issue with the ledge. Does anybody want to ask questions or comment on what Mr. Rydberg has presented? Mr. McRae.
Mr. Rydberg, I think there was lots of discussion yesterday about the building itself, what HDC's returned with. Couple of things before we kind of get into the weeds. For next time, if you can actually send to staff the HDC presentation and the background stuff, so we can see from soup to nuts where you started, how we got to here. So it might inform a lot of people. And I think yesterday we had talked about some issues of the building itself, and some people couldn't put their finger on issues that they couldn't express their concerns. And as I was looking at this, I tried to kind of point out some things that maybe understanding their concerns so they could actually see it better. And I think two things that popped out to me was the connection between the upper stories and the first floor seemed as if the building on top was just placed on top of a one-story brick building, almost as if it was a later date. And the eave lines along the roofs are very busy. And two thoughts that I had was, is it possible for the siding of the upper story be swelled into the corbelling of the first story? So it looks like there is not a kind of disjointed connection, but more of an organic connection to the corbelling. I very much appreciate the work your staff goes through, and you and your staff putting together brick buildings. I think the examples in town are actually all successful. I think with this one, what HDC is looking at and what you finally kind of agreed with them on works, I think it just actually ironing out some of the details. That's the first one. The second one is that it seems that we've got a couple of different eave lines up and down along the facades. And one of the thoughts I had was, is there one eave line that could be maintained as this, the datum going all the way around the building? The ends or the corners have a lower one. The middle seems to be the one maybe that might work out best. And then you have the center hips in those two units that are actually higher because of the transoms. It might be possible if you can explore that as an opportunity to make that a little bit more consistent. I appreciate the fact that the building actually, its facade moves in and out to give it some relief and some shadow. I think that, could be successful, but I think it's a connection of the upper stories to the lower and simplifying as much as you can that eave line all the way around the building. I think actually understanding is you've actually taken a look at what can happen with a commercial and provided for signage, your awnings, those things. So they're actually incorporated in the initial designs, which is great. Even to the back of the building where you've actually underneath the building, under that overhang in the back, incorporated that there. So I think the only biggest concern I have is that, and I think the information you've given to HDC may help me understand it, is the height of the building in relationship to the building next door. If you have that drawing that shows the new building ghosted with the existing residence, then we can get a really good sense of actually the actual height from the street in real time for this. And the landscape, I guess there's a significant amount of landscape in the front to hide, in front of the stone wall and along the sidewalk. So it's very much appreciated. So that's what my thoughts on the architecture. I just wanted to know if you had any thoughts to that, or if it's something you want to explore.
And you want me to
Okay,
respond now?
Yeah, if you would respond, and then Mr. Wells will ask you a question. Go ahead,
Okay.
Mr. Rydberg.
So you actually, Nick, reminding me that in the second phase, when we came back with our first revision, I did have a building that had still brick on portions of the facade, and that we still had a combination on the upper 2 floors of brick, but we then intermixed shingle. And I believe the way we did it, again, the HTC presentation, which we will send you for the next go around, I think clearly shows that was another alternative. So there were like 3 or 4 alternatives we went back to, and this is the one that we brought back. But yeah, to your point, there was one that continued the brick all the way up. We wanted to break up the facade rather than be all shingle up there by using the panel look, I'll say, at the 2 big bays that bump out, which has transoms in it.
Yeah, I see that.
Yeah, so we can certainly look at the eaves, not a problem. The swelling of the shingles, we've done that before, as you know, on some of our other buildings. We can take a look at that transition. It's not a real big transition. I would say it's 6 inches max between the two, between the shingle and the brick. So the swale could work there, and that could be relatively modest. So it doesn't. We like the look of the swale on buildings, but we often get comments from clients later on saying, the rainwater hits the swale and we have to maintain it more. True, but that's sort of what the beauty of shingle style, of that shingling style, happens. So yeah, with wood, sometimes we have to maintain it. We wouldn't want to use necessarily the shingle that is currently made by one of the manufacturers. It's too
Let's not go that deep in detail.
Okay, fine.
Okay, let's not do the type of shingle it is. You can
We'll
always
get
go.
you we'll get you the
You can
HTC
always go, yeah. If HTC is happy with the shingles, I think we can leave it, what you selected, the selection goes to them. Mr. Wells.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. 2 quick questions. Mr. Rydberg, sorry, I'm fighting a cold.
Sorry to hear that.
Just want to commend you on the excellent energy narrative that you provided. Very thorough. In it, you indicated that geothermal would be the heating and cooling source for the residential uses. Is there a capacity issue why it couldn't also be provided for the commercial uses?
I don't, we haven't hired an engineer yet for the project, but the developer has done several successful projects before, and he mentioned that he definitely would have the heat pumps for the geothermal for the residential. I don't think we've determined what's available and how much to do it yet. We can certainly bring that up. We're trying to make the building efficient as possible, certainly super insulate it, which is always the first. But we can certainly consider that. I'll discuss that with him.
Great, thank you.
Okay, I'm gonna divert back to Mr. Hegney. Mr. Hegney.
Yes, Madam Chair.
Does your client have a strong objective of having the retail component there, or are they doing it to be in compliance with the zoning regulations?
Well, obviously, the LBR2 zone requires
For
use group
6110.
8 for the first floor.
Mhm.
And so we designed 2, and that's a recently amended regulation 6110. So
That's okay.
so
We're gonna
we-
change it
we-
again.
we-
Don't worry.
We submitted under that. Would my client consider an all residential?
Yeah.
I would have to go over that with them.
So here's my question to you.
Yes.
The reason I'm asking you is 6110 requires a mixed use in the LBR2. However, you now have a hardship issue, I believe, potentially, that could be raised because of the ledge being 31%. And you being the concerns that conservation has raised regarding the ledge removal and the amount of removal that is going on there as being inconsistent with the POCD. I mean, granted, that's not a factor in a site plan application, but nevertheless, if it were possible to get a variance, you could do all residential if that was what your client wanted. It would resolve the ledge work. It would also potentially lower the overall scale of your building, which is, I believe, what has given rise to some question from the commission. But again, this would be something that would be you and your client taking the initiative, because we would not ask you to do that because it would be not in conform, unless you had a variance, it wouldn't be in conformity.
Madam Chair, in order to get a variance, you have to show hardship, and the hardship has to be associated with the property.
And so I'm
I can't
asking,
find a hardship almost everywhere.
but I'm asking with the
I'm
31,
not sure it is here.
if the 31% slope that is generating the conservation concerns, because slopes in excess of 25%, to her point, I think you've probably had a chance to review the conservation comments. So her point is slopes in excess of 25 are highlighted in the POCD as a natural resource to be protected. So boom, under the special permit, that becomes an issue because it's a natural resource to be protected. You now might potentially have a hardship, if you see where I'm going.
I do, and hardships have to be associated with the property, and topography is a basis for a hardship. So
that's what my favorite town planner indicated, that topography can be a hardship before I threw that out. So it's just a question, because if that was something your client wanted, and again, it's your client's choice, but if that was something your client wanted, it would address a lot of the concerns being raised. It would raise you might not have to you might be able to accommodate the parking beneath the building only. So you're only removing soil under the building in the front part. And because you wouldn't require as much parking. So the question is, does an 8-unit residential only appeal to your client? Because that would be your decision, your client's decision.
So to clear that out, eight units would be 2 floors or all 3 floors?
2 floors.
2 floors. I mean, I'm just trying to say, okay, so we're basically to reduce the impact on the grades, we get parking in the basement for how many units above? That's the question.
8.
Okay.
Well, Madam Chair, I thought you were talking about 3 levels of residential rather than 2.
I
So
mean,
the retail would be a residential floor rather than a retail floor.
I don't know if I don't think that I didn't stop and do the math in my head, because remember, your parking requirement goes up when you're not mixed use. So I didn't do the math in my head of how you would address so that your parking requirement is just in the front of the lot. And therefore, I think you could only accommodate 8 units. It would have to be your call. But I'm trying to get you from.
These are 2-bedroom units. They would require 2 parking spaces per dwelling.
So you now
And
need
so
16.
with 12, that would require 24. We currently are showing
Require
34 plus 2 handicap.
2 handy. So if you drop
the requirement is 30.
And how many of the parking spots, Nick knows this always better than I do, how much is required behind the building where the ledge is?
Well, we were showing 10 spaces under the building. So that would be, rather than 24 being outside, it would be
Only the 14 and or
14. So it'd be
I'm
10
just
less.
asking, if this was something your client wanted, it could structure a win-win. You address the conservation issues, which are right on. You reduce your cost because you don't have the huge excavation, and you reduce the scale of the building and potentially the traffic that it's generating. So it could do a lot of pluses. And our super high priority right now is to get some residential in, is to get what they call missing middle housing. This building fits our current goals of getting that missing middle housing that we don't have enough of for people who are coming to start their careers in Greenwich. So there could be a lot of wins for us if that worked for your client, but that's the question.
My client is very experienced and capable in this type of development, and I would certainly see what his thoughts are in terms of that as an option.
Because you're addressing the traffic, you're addressing the excavation, you're addressing the scale, maybe. And we leave you with those questions. I believe Mr. Levy is also going to comment on the architecture. And we would leave you to explore that. We need to hear from Beta. We need to hear, if you keep the retail, how you're going to do this. There's that big question of, we don't know when the traffic improvement project is going to get done in Glenville. Because the funding's up in the air right now. So you have to deal with, I think you have to assume that Glenville's going to be what it is right now. And residents aren't happy with the traffic. Okay, Mr. Levy, I turn to you. You patiently had your hand up.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair. I live in Glenville.
Which means you can bring special expertise to the table.
Yes. And I would say that this is a very residential area. Yes, it's a mixed zoning, but it is residential. There's I think that the chair's suggestions about changing the scope of this project are really something that could make this project work. I don't, to me, I don't think the retail is a good direction. I think that it's going to be hard to fill that retail, and it also tries to make Glenville into something that it's not. The people walk their dogs. I walk my dog. People amble through. It is a very busy area. People getting from one place to another. It is not such a great retail location. The shopping center is having its issues right now.
Well, the supermarket just closed.
Yes,
And
so
hopefully
I
something
can
will
get
come
into
in.
that as well. I did have a
Yes.
conversation with the first selectman on that today, so.
yeah.
Oh, good, because
And-
we've asked him to, everybody keeps writing him and saying, you got to go talk to people and find out what's happening. Good. So that'd be great for you to share that.
He has.
The urbanization of
Okay.
Glenville vis-a-vis this project is really kind of going in the wrong direction. It just is not in character. It's certainly out of scope, and is not what the neighborhood is looking for. And this is a neighborhood. The neighborhood needs calm and to keep it as a nice, quiet place. This will make it a little bit going off in a different direction, which is simply not appropriate for the neighborhood. It needs to be more sensitive. The in fact, the architecture as Mr. McAfee was commenting, needs to be quieter. And the juxtaposition of the two different materials is probably too fussy for the neighborhood. This does not need to be brick. It would be more in keeping to not make it brick. Just because the mill is brick doesn't mean that houses need to be brick. It doesn't need that this needs to be brick. What this needs to be is what it, as a famous architect once says, it needs to be what it needs to be. A brick needs to be a brick, and wood needs to be consistent with wood. And I think that the urbanization or the suburbanization of the neighborhood is not what people want. It is just an overdevelopment of a very tight, awkward site. The more that it can fit in and be and match and come to terms with the limitations of the site instead of flattening it out, I think the more successful it will be. I could go on and on and on, but I don't want to be too specific.
No, because we'll jump all over you if you're too.
Right. So unless I can think of anything else later, I think unless
Thank you.
hopefully you understood my direction and
Yeah, it was well done. Well done. Ms. Jenkins.
Yes, I'm not an architect, but I would say that I also found the appearance of the building to be very busy. And a lot of that does have to do with the roof line. And my immediate reaction was you're replacing a white clapboard house with brick and gray clapboard and all sorts of things on the roof. So it did seem very busy. But my comment is actually one of the drawings showed a retaining wall that looked to be just enormous. It looked to be 1.5 stories high on the side of the building.
Do you remember what the number was on the drawing?
No, I'm sorry, I don't. It was one of the line drawings. It was not a photograph or a ghost photograph, but it looked like the retaining wall, particularly close to the building, was very tall. And I think it came up yesterday. I'm sorry, I don't have it open right
Well,
now.
good for you for seeing it. So, Mr. Rydberg, do you remember where your retaining wall is high?
Drawing A6 of the
Oof.
architectural plans is
Look
a
at you.
section to the site.
We're going to give
Thank
Nick a gold star.
Oh, I depend on him to find the drawing.
Yeah.
That's the site section from Glenville to the back of the site. That's it.
Is that, I mean, the
It's
line.
not, that's the, no, that retaining wall is only that's the front on Glenville Street side. That we're elevated from the street there. And that's where the front promenade is along the street. They're referencing in the back, which is in the back, that's the existing topo of the adjacent property. That's the height of the adjacent property. It's not a retaining wall. It's the adjacent property on the neighbor. That would be a new wall there.
So the line
The
that's.
one straight ahead. Is that which one? Is that the one you're
The
mentioning?
line that's actually perpendicular coming out from the building at quite a height, like the second story. What does that represent? I'm
So
sorry.
right where you're drawing there with the first car in there
Yeah.
is the wall of the adjacent liquor store's property.
And the
And there-
rectangle behind, I'm sorry, the rectangle behind that's on the drawing. Just move the cursor up. Move the cursor up to the, no,
There.
not right or left, but up.
higher, higher. There you go. What is that line?
Yeah, what is it?
That line there, I don't, there's no line, and we're not building any
Right,
retaining
that
wall.
is a wall.
Oh, I know. You know what that is? That's the line to the old ridge. I think that's what that is. Could that be?
Let me see if I
So
can
that
zoom in.
has to be a retaining wall.
Yeah, it's just not clear to me what you're going to be cutting into a lot of ledge there and you're sitting or building low. And I just couldn't figure out how much of a retaining wall there is there. You've got a tree next to the car and you have a tree above the car, and I can't figure out where the grade plane is for the actual building. It looks like it's seated pretty low because the front of the building has a tree in front of it, which is lower than the car behind it. If it's behind
The tree that's behind the car in the middle, right there,
Okay.
that tree is in the island. If we have the Matt Pop's landscape plan, those are trees that are rebuilt into the island of parking. The trees in the background are representative of a series of trees that are existing on the property of the adjacent liquor store.
So that.
That's in the distance.
So there's no, but you are cutting into the ledge at that point? Is there a ledge?
That wall falls away. The ledge where you have that cursor right now, where that cursor is, that's the ledge that will be cut there.
Okay.
Okay. And that's the ledge that will be cut, line drilled and clefted now naturally, I believe.
Okay, I appreciate the explanation. Obviously, I misconstrued the entire drawing, so I appreciate.
Mr. LaRoe, can you go to one of the site development plans?
Your issue is well taken and has you have a point. So I'll take it up a little bit further. There is a tremendous amount of rock that's being excavated, and you have created a pit for parking. And it's not going to be, it's not a very sightly. So, and in the front, I would say that elevating the retail off the street there, let's see, you have is the retail at the same elevation of the street?
No, it is up higher.
It is
It is
up
up
higher.
higher so that we can park under the building.
Right, but
We need to
that
park
is
under the building.
that is the wrong scenario for many places, including here, for retail or for anything. And I think that you should really reconsider, if you're going to do retail, you have to reconsider that. That does not work well.
Well, we do have handicap ramps to get up to that
I
level.
know it's not, people need to be at street level for retail, especially in a little a town like this. People are that's the way retail works best. This is not an ideal situation, and it's not good for Glenville. You have to rethink that somehow. This is something that does not work. I'm telling you right now, it does not work.
Well, the adjacent liquor store is even higher first floor. I'm not saying that's the right thing to do for the liquor store, but that's what, if you look at the store there, you go up much more steps to get to their liquor store.
I understand how there are like and kind things, but you are building an enormous storefront that's elevated, that is off the street. And it's not the kind of thing which you would design from scratch if you had a flat surface. You wouldn't elevate your retail off the street. It's not a good idea. And what they've done is they've accommodated it by putting up steps, and people go there, and that's one quirky thing about that particular store.
Okay.
Also,
so-
the majority of the parking there, just to make a comment, the majority of the parking that's going to be used by retail, since we don't have the opportunity to park in front of the building, it's in the rear of the building, which is level with the rear of the building. So it's one of these, you've got a site that has certain constraints. We tried to marry it all. And by putting a garage in there, we had to elevate the building, which also allowed us though to have the rear of the parking. So we didn't want to pull the building back further.
Nothing is perfect, but what you're doing is you're creating something which is simply not standard and needs to be thought differently.
Okay, so can we, is that it for the commission now? Anybody else?
I think actually the wall that Mr. Jenkins was talking about actually is on the site development plans. It's a large retaining wall that's going around the east of the site, or excuse me, from the west of the site towards the north and then back towards the east. I had two different elevations. At the highest, on the survey, I had about 16 feet of the height of the wall. Okay, on the architecturals, it was actually much higher than that. So there is a big cut into the back grade and that retaining wall. And I think that's what she was trying to point out initially, is that the wall is going to be new and quite tall.
Right. Okay. And but so we're trying to fix that. Okay. Any other comments? I think we've given a lot of direction. All right. We're going to turn to public comment if that's all right, Mr. Hegney.
Certainly, Madam
Right,
Chair.
I just, before we move
Oh.
on, I just want to make sure I understand. The, Mr. Hegney, you might be able to answer this. The traffic analysis that we've received is going to be redone to accommodate in-school, when the school is occupied, that kind of thing.
When I
here's the-
spoke with Mr. Adler about it, he said that they had made adjustments and would be interested in reviewing that with the consultant at Beta on it.
And
That
Nick,
he believes that
Okay,
yeah, they had other traffic counts because he's been doing other projects in the area.
Mhm.
right, okay.
And they
But so-
believe that
and Nick,
he could
the
show
thing
how
is-
that was compensated for.
Okay,
and Nick,
because
the important thing to think about here, the thing I was saying before, and then you can go back to talking, I'm sorry, but I just want to say, they did the most super optimistic traffic count you could do. And they still have a degradation of level of service. So without even redoing it, we're already looking at the best case. So what they've got to do is figure out how they can mitigate that. We already know that even when they try to make it pretty, it doesn't look good. So go ahead.
right, I think,
you were
and then
finishing.
the one thing, is Mr. Adler aware of the Glenville Improvement Plan? And is he incorporating those ideas into this? As I see this, somewhere in the next 15 years, this building could be built, that improvement plan could be incorporated. And I think that's the kind of thing, as a planning and zoning commission, we kind of should be looking at, is to see, we have two projects happening in the same place. They may have impact on each other somewhere down the line. I
Right.
think it would be important to actually kind of incorporate that into whatever Mr. Adler's developing.
Except, let me give you a contra to that. And I'm just talking about it with Mr. McRae. Okay, Mr. Hegney, it's this. We don't know that we're going to get the money. We don't know that it'll
It
go
doesn't matter about money, but it's kind of thing to me right now. There's an opportunity here
right.
for us to actually now say, what happens if this thing goes through?
Yes.
What happens if this other thing goes through? But we didn't look at both of them at the same time.
Correct. But
To
on
me,
the other-
that's not good planning.
Yes.
I think
you're
actually
absolute-
understanding, putting it together, because it's status quo right now. If this building never gets built, but the traffic improvements go through, there you got one scenario.
Right.
If the traffic stuff doesn't go through, but we get the building, that's another scenario. But please make sure that we have both of these looked at the same time, just in case.
Correct. But on the other hand, what we don't want them to do is say, oh, so you're going to have this traffic improvement project, so you're not going to have a problem with us degrading the level of service.
That's what we think we really have to find out.
Yeah. Okay. Mr. Levy, you wanted to say something else?
You did.
Mr. Levy?
Mr. Levy, you're muted.
Muted.
Sorry,
Okay.
I'm looking at slide 85, which is a section which includes the section of the sidewalk and the street. But there's no elevation on that. Is there another place where you have the elevation marked?
Mr. Levy, as I see it, the first floor elevation of the retail is at 136. And the sidewalk in front, as I see it, is 131. That's the curb line at Glenville. So we're looking about 5-6 feet.
Where, I don't see where it says that. What?
I'm looking
slides
at
are-
the site development plan.
All right.
Okay, all right. Okay.
Mr. Levy, do you want to come back to that once you found it, or, and we'll go to
No,
public
no,
comment?
that's all. I just wanted to know where it was.
Okie dokie. So
you.
we're going to turn to public comment. And so Mr. Hegney, really, at the end of the day, Mr. McRae and I are on the same page. We don't want a rosy assumption about what's going on and then have the traffic be awful and have us not be prepared for it. Okay, so with that,
Understood.
folks, speaking from the public, we're going to give you 2 minutes because we don't know how many. Oh, there's only 3 of you. Start with 2 minutes. If it's not enough, we'll come back and call. If you feel something important was missing, raise your hand again after you're done and we'll call on you again. Okay, we're just trying to get through it. So the first person is P. Adams. And P. Adams, if you would unmute, and then just also provide your first name for the court reporter. P. Adams, not unmuting. Okay. All right, so we will go to Susan Taplin. We'll give P. Adams a chance to unmute. And Susan Taplin, if you would unmute.
Yes.
Hi.
Hi, I'm Susan Taplin. I live on Angeles Drive. My husband Gary and I have lived here for 37 years. It used to be a nice, quiet street. With the addition of the country table, it has become increasingly difficult to leave for emergency medical appointments. There are many of us on the street who are senior citizens who have to get to doctor's appointments, and there are a lot of young families who have to take their children to school and to other things. I'm exceedingly concerned about the traffic and what is going to happen, and also what is going to happen during construction. We just had one house done on this street, and when it was done, construction became ridiculous. We also have a lot of Town of Greenwich, huge dump trucks coming up and down our street. I don't know why they go up to the top of the circle and they stay there. I don't know what they do there, but we can have 4 at a time. And also people who aren't supposed to come up for bailiwick and sometimes stay or drop people off. So number one, I am very concerned with what is going to happen during construction and afterwards. If all these cars are pouring out from the 9 Glenville Street parking garage, how are we going to get in? How are we going to get out? There have been so many near misses from the country table when they come out from where they are. And the second thing I just want to say parenthetically is I'm exceedingly sad to see the Queen Anne building leaving. I know in Old Greenwich, when you had when the Harbor House was redone into condominiums, they kept the feeling of Queen Anne. There's so little Queen Anne architecture. It's a shame that that's not being considered. So those are my 2 points.
Thank you, Ms. Taplin. I believe Mr. LaRoe has a comment for you. But he's muted, so he can't.
Ms. Taplin, before you go away, could you just explain? Well, first of all, I just want to make sure I heard you correctly. Did you say garbage or dump trucks that go up to the end of the Evangelist?
Dump trucks.
Dump trucks. Thank you.
They're huge Town of Greenwich trucks with trailers on the back of them.
Okay.
All right, we'll find out. Is that what you're
we'll
saying?
absolutely find out. And then could
Okay.
you maybe elaborate about what you think or you see as the issue in getting out for appointments and other things that you mentioned? I'm not sure if I'm understanding what is it the intersection? Is it traffic in the area? You know, if you
Well, first of all, it's become next to impossible to get out just with the traffic that is there right now on Angeles Drive. It has, in the last couple of years, just gotten enormously worse. I happen to be very good at getting in and out of things because I'm from California and I smile at people and they tend to let me in. But if they don't see me smiling, you can wait there 20 minutes and not be able to get out to make a left turn from Angeles Drive onto Glenville Road. I just don't see how you can put more traffic there without changing something or doing something. And I know you can't have another light because there's one at Riversville Road, there's one at Glenville Street.
Okay,
But
so I think to answer Mr. LaRoe, Ms. Taplin, what you're saying is that on Angelus, making the turn from Angelus is very difficult unless you smile at people with your California best.
yes, but it is
Okay.
dangerous. It's also dangerous coming from town up Glenville Road and turning right on Angelus Drive because there's parking all the way down to the end.
So there's not enough
And
sight.
if
You can't see if
turn,
it's clear.
You can't see if cars are coming down Angelus Drive. And it's just waiting for something to happen.
Gotcha. So the line of sight, Mr. Hegney, is something we're gonna have to look at.
Exactly. And neighbors are constantly telling me about all these near misses. And of course, I've had near misses too. And thank God they've been misses so far. But we can't have a time when it's even worse. It needs to be better as far as traffic control goes and being able to get out of Angelus Drive.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. The next person to speak is Pamela, no, I'm sorry, is P. Adams. If you would kindly identify, tell us your first name for the court reporter.
Hi, my name is Patricia Adams, and sorry for the problem with the unmuting.
No worries.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak. As a Glenville resident, I appreciate Mr. Levy's comments, and I have to apologize in advance because I don't know what all the different codes mean in the documentation, but I did not see any visual renderings of that retaining wall. And the ledge and rock removal would really create onerous conditions in an already congested area. So, and I'm also concerned about the size of that retaining wall. I was looking at slide number 70 in the town documentation that showed it to be almost 2 stories. With respect to the CMAQ study that has been brought up several times, looking at morning traffic on Riversville, Glen Ridge, and Pemberwick, in 6 years, it's all forecasted to be a Class F area. And I contacted the Greenwich Police Department asking about motor vehicle accidents in the area and was told that Glenville Road and Glenville Street, since April 2017 to October 2022, there were 4 motor vehicle accidents with and without injuries, but there was also an extensive list of motor vehicle stops there. At the Riversville and Glenville areas, there were 12 motor vehicle accidents since January 2017 to 2023, in addition to several other vehicle stops and problems there. So we already know that CMAQ has been delayed. We already know that it's a hazardous intersection. So I just wanted to comment on that. But I also had other questions / comments about stormwater. The Byram River is right nearby. The plans show that the paved parking lot is going to have porous asphalt. Where are the residue chemicals from that parking lot going, and are they filtered? The Byram River is already an impaired river, and we
Yeah,
don't.
no, ma'am. Yes, you're out of time anyway, but we'll bring you back if you haven't gotten all your questions answered. The drainage manual that we have requires that the stormwater be retained and filtered, treated, so that it doesn't flow into. It also has to be kept on site, and this is going to be quite tricky for them because of the ledge, but the drainage has to be approved, and it cannot go onto another property or leave its own property, increase the leaving of its own property the way our drainage manual works. So that will be carefully done by our engineering department. We'll come back to you. I'm going to let Pamela Ferraro go, and after that, Marshall Carroll, but I'm going to leave you here, ma'am, and so you can finish if you didn't, okay?
Okay, thank you.
Ms. Ferraro, if you would go ahead.
Yes, hi, everyone.
Timer.
Ultimately, height and external appearance of this project is not the issue. I'm gratified to hear Mr. Levy say, and I quote his words, "It's an overdevelopment of a very tight and awkward site. The project is too big in scale, too detrimental to traffic and the quality of life for anyone who even drives through Glenville, let alone those of us who live on Angeles Drive. I'm a 24-year resident of Angeles Drive, and simply not in keeping with the neighborhood." I'm gratified to hear that you guys seem to get the picture about traffic. The study done in August is virtually useless. At the very minimum, it should be done when school is in session, so September at the very least. And again, as you said, Ms. Albin, their level of service of a D is not really reassuring. And of course, nothing has happened so far from the traffic study from 2019. Also, at a meeting in the fall, a spokesman for this project declared that there is, quote, "an appetite for increased retail in Glenville, bringing new energy to the downtown." The downtown that he's referring to, as Mr. Levy also referred to, is 4 blocks long. Glenville is a tiny, small neighborhood. And I would say that we are already struggling with the energy that already exists here. There are 5 empty stores in the Stop and Shop parking lot, another one or 5 there. And I just don't think we need more retail here. I am a little bit encouraged to hear about a possible residential only. That could be definitely more in keeping with the neighborhood, but with Country Table, with what's across the street, with what's here, and don't forget, Angeles Drive is a dead end, so we have no other way to get in and out of our street. A few other points, if we have time to come back. I appreciate your time and attention to this.
Thank you, ma'am. All right. So Marshall Caro is next. Marshall Caro, if you would unmute. Okay, go ahead.
Okay. I don't see my picture. I don't know if my camera's working.
Well, we can hear you, so go right ahead. Timer.
I am greatly impressed with all the work
Timer.
you've done trying to get this project done. My first experience with you. I want to comment on traffic, but first I want to comment on parking on Angeles Drive. We have the Country Table, which whose parking lot overflows to Angeles Drive. The architect or whoever did the study of the proposed retail for the new development really doesn't give us a picture of how difficult it's going to be to get in and out of that parking lot. It looks to me like you're going to make a right angle turn off Glenville Street, a right angle turn down that driveway, and then another right angle turn to get up to the upper parking lot. And you also have garage parking in the same on the same path. It would be helpful if you did a video simulation of what it's going to look like. My point being is, I don't think patrons are going to want to park on that parking lot. I think they're going to exacerbate parking on Angeles Drive, or they're going to park in the municipal lot by the firehouse. So if you're going to do this, I think you would have to use whatever resources you have to make Angeles Drive a residential zone up to the first turn. We've got to get the Country Table cars off of it. We've got to get the other cars off of it.
Okay, so Mr. Caro, you've got 20, I'm sorry, let me let you finish.
As far as the traffic study is concerned, sorry, I think it's garbage. I think the dates were deliberately picked. Now, what has transpired or opened since that study was done is the other side of Angeles Drive is in full swing with the condos down there. That wasn't picked up last August. We've got a new office building or a rebuilt office building. I think it's 255 Glenville Street, the private building. They've got some odd spots.
All right, that's an excellent point, Mr. Caro. I'm going to stop you there, but what I'm going to ask Mr. Hegney to do is to make sure that he has not, that the adjustments that the traffic engineer is making, if they're going to read that their data include all the impact of the schools being open, what happens when people are on vacation and boom, everybody's already on vacation now. So I don't know how you're going to do it. You've got to know August is dead empty in town. We know that. And the other thing is what major developments have gotten a CO and are now occupied since the traffic counts were done? Because I think Mr. Carroll is referring potentially to the mill.
I guess it's called the mill. It's the condos, the former commercial buildings.
Yes, yes, sir. That would be the mill. And so if the mill didn't have, I don't know when the mill got its CO, so we will make sure that someone is on top of that. It's a great point to make because I hadn't thought of it. Okay, sir, I'm gonna go on to the next person. I believe this is Vin DeMarco. Vin, if you would come in. Vin, I'm just gonna, you declined. I'm gonna try you one more time. Okay, there you go. All right, Vin. Mr. DeMarco, if you would unmute. Don't start his timer yet. He hasn't started talking yet.
There you go.
There you go. Good job.
Okay, sorry about that. I had to find the right place.
Yeah, it's hard.
But thank you very much. This is typical of a planning and zoning commission meeting where you're struggling with an issue that I'm not sure you can surmount. If everybody, if everything,
don't discourage us. We try every day.
Yeah, I know. But if you assume that all of these development projects are going to be based on the fact that everyone is going to drive a car to get around, then I don't see how you're going to surmount any of this because development is cumulative, is going to continue this way. I'm currently acting chair of the Active Transportation Task Force, which we changed from the Bicycle Task Force to recognize that people have other options now besides standard pedal bicycles. There's e-bikes, there's e-scooters, there's hoverboards, there's everything that you can imagine. And I think we and the commission in particular needs to not just understand, you guys know it, need to consider those things in your deliberations. And I don't hear that happening in these discussions. Mr. Levy's shaking his head. Yes, I know he gets it. And I really appreciate his comments regarding the retail, which doesn't belong there. So I mean, I applaud you for doing everything you can to try to, allow everyone to continue to drive everywhere. But we really have to start thinking about a place like Glenville, a tight, small community like that. Someone called it quiet. That the CMAQ project is going to do nothing to eliminate traffic or to alleviate traffic, and possibly alleviate some congestion, but at the expense of speed, moving traffic faster. It's not going to be.
I think your time's up, Mr. DeMarco.
Okay.
Thank you. We are trying to get through. Okay,
Sure.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All righty. One more. Marshall Carroll raised his hand again. Let me go back. Patricia Adams, was there any one point that nobody's made that you still very much need to make?
I had 2 points. One was there an environmental review conducted considering that there used to be a gas station on the site? And then the other question was about the moderate income housing unit. I did not see any documentation, any indication in the documentation that said what the time frame was that unit would be preserved for. And I only saw that one parking space was allocated for that unit. So those were my 3 other issues.
Great. Okay, thank you. No, there hasn't been, I'll ask, I don't think they've done a contamination evaluation. That, as you usually falls, the remediation for that would fall on the owner of the gas station if it was a company, unless that the sale contract in the 80 years since then excludes it. Okay, thank you. Ms. Ferrara.
Madam Chair, I think it's also important to note that the moderate income, it's in perpetuity, the restriction.
Sorry, I forgot to say that. Thank
Yeah.
you very much. Ms. Ferraro, did you want to add one more thing before you?
Just to
Sign off.
expound a little bit on what already is going on Angeles Drive, that we have parking for Glenville Pizza, I'm sorry, for G-Ville, for Glenville Wine, and for Country Table that already park on our street. And as someone mentioned, sight lines are quite dangerous. So I don't know quite how to do this, but one of us, I guess, as a resident, should probably initiate something to get residential parking protected on that street. I'm just afraid that patrons of the new retail would, as someone said, not want to park in their lot, but would be tempted to park on our street.
Well, I can tell you how to do it. I can tell
Thank
you
you.
exactly how to do it. You are going to go to the head of parking services, which is Craig Gray, and Patrick will send you, I believe you've already written us once.
I have.
Okay, so
That's his
Patrick and
skill set.
Tracy have your email. Tracy
Yep.
will send you the deputy chief's email address, and
I
you
have
write.
Ms. Farrar's email.
Thank
Okay,
you.
and we will send you Deputy Chief Gray's email address, and you write parking services, and you say you want a residential parking sticker program.
Residential parking sticker program. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
All righty. Okay, I thought we were done, but we have Mary Ann Ramos. Mary Ann Ramos, if you would go ahead. So that's Chief Gray's, that's Deputy Chief Gray's job. We know do. Mary Ann Ramos, if you would unmute. Yeah, she was fine before she got it. She was supposed to be talking.
I think so.
There you go. There you go. There you go. Okay, go
Okay.
ahead.
So,
We'll hold
basically,
you to 2 minutes if we can.
yes, yes. I'm in the safety portion of Greenwich as a federal medical reserve, and I'm on the Board of Health. That's aside from this, and I live, and I have to get out from the mill exit, 12 Glenville Street. So I find it difficult already. And
Yes.
I certainly am looking forward to the traffic evaluation that is during normal business and monthly hours.
I think you
Okay.
just got trashed again, Mr. Agnew. Okay, thank
So-
you. Yes.
And also, of course, I think the size of the building is not, like, as Mr. Levy said, is not conducive to this particular area. And again, that particular corner either should have big X's so that people will not stop there. And there is a little sign that allows me to get out, but I don't see that as I think maybe there's going to need another light there. It's just very, very busy and very dangerous.
Okay.
And that's really all I had to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Ramos, and thank you for your service to the town.
Thank you.
All righty, we're done with public comment, folks. So, Mr. Hegney, obviously you've gotten lots of feedback that somehow or other the traffic study has to reflect what the usage really is at when it's real peak and what the impact is, to take into account as well the accident data, the volume level. It seems like the sightline issues are a problem on Angeles, which I was not aware of. I don't know if Mr. Adler also looked at the traffic accident rate. I know that all that data, as was mentioned, is available in the CMAQ grant proposal. So it's easily available to Mr. Adler. I'm not sure if how you address, I recognize that the building is not significantly higher than the ones adjacent to it. However, you're getting a comment consistently that it is not in keeping or scale with the neighborhood. So if the architect could address that, and also Mr. Levy and Mr. McRae's comments regarding the roof lines. And again, the conservation issue comes up, the 31% grade, and the concerns that this is, per the POCD, a natural resource to be conserved. Did I leave anything out? Okay, so those would be the things to address the next time. I know conservation doesn't think the planting will work because of the ledge situation, that the planting plan's gorgeous but won't work, so.
Well, when we get into it more
Yeah.
deeply, we'll have.
Then you'll address that.
Mr. Pop address that, yes. And Mr. DeAndrea and Mr. Adler respond to the traffic and circulation issues.
Okay, so, we see you when we see you then.
Yeah, we'll get back together as a group and review the comments that were made this evening and the issues that the commission raised, and let you know when we think we can be back in front of you with some responses and comments.
And, two things. Again, as you know from conversations you've had with us on affordable housing, there is very much an interest at the state level to see us expand housing options. And this type of housing that you're creating here is what the state would deem desirable. I just heard a presentation on it yesterday, mentioned it to the commission at the briefing. So we are looking to support housing options, but they have to work in a neighborhood as well. So there you go.
Certainly, I appreciate those comments. This is the LBR zone.
Yes.
The commission had a moratorium for a year and a half on these types of developments, adopted these regulations recently, and that's what we have been following as our template for how we're designing this project.
I got it.
So
we understand.
We'll take your comments and see what we can do with them.
And as you work with that regulation, we aren't seeing as many applications as we'd like under it. So I know what suggestions people would make, but let's go. Okay, so thank you again. So this will be continued. Mr.
Yes,
Rydberg,
please.
you're going to stay with us because
Yes.
you have 206. Mr. Hegney, you don't have 206, do you?
No,
Can't
I'm the one
remember.
after that.
Okie doke, we'll see you in a bit.
Okay, thank you.
Who's with you, Mr. Rydberg?
I'm sorry, excuse me.
Who's with you?
Well, Tony DeAndrea and Matt Pop are probably available if needed. I'm not sure
Okay.
if we need them.
All right,
And
so
Richard
let's just-
Saunders.
Okay, so let's just go to the application. This is 206 Sound Beach Avenue for final coastal site plan and special permit. On this application, seated are Albin, Macri, Levy, Jenkins for Yeski, and seated for Mr. Lowe will be Mr. Wells if he's surviving his cold. Okay, so Mr. Wells was here and is familiar with the past on it. Mr. Lowe is absent. So again, Albin, Macri, Levy, Wells, and Jenkins. All right.
Great. Okay, great. Thank you. For the record, Rudy Rydberg, Rydberg Architects. We were here two or three hearings ago, at which time you requested that we go back to ARC to get approval of a new facade that we had discussed with you, but we needed ARC's approval. We have since gone back and had that both approved front and rear elevations with some minor electronic returns. So from an architectural standpoint, I think the building, if Pat wants to bring up the, if you want to see it, Pat wants to bring up, let's see, is that sheet 31 of 61, Pat? Of the presentation? This is still for a restaurant, as 2/3 of the building, and then a retail store to the south side of the space. And if Pat, if he gets a chance to open that up, we originally had an opening, a window opening that we were contemplating having a seating area sitting against a counter, not necessarily a pass-through. We talked about it. We looked at the regs and we decided afterwards to just go back to a nice traditional entrance, which would be a double entrance door in the steel category and glass. And then we will have a triple door instead of a double door, a triple door adjacent to that. That will then be opened. There we go. Perfect. That can open out to the sidewalk, similar to what we've been doing at Siren down the street at 220 Sound
Oh,
Beach.
And what Versailles does, a Bistro V, I mean.
Everybody, yeah, exactly. So it's a great setup, and behind there would be a small bar that could get some natural light, daylight, and fresh air, and so on and so forth, and just get an ambiance. There will be some outdoor seating, which will be a separate application that the owner will go for in the fall, or probably for next year, or whatever timing. I'll go to P&Z. To the right will be a retail store, and you can see that on the floor plan where the restaurant is versus the retail store. The back of the lot, if we could go to DeAndrea's site plan, I think, let me see what number that one was. That's the one that you didn't really have last time. We have that, DeAndrea's have done a survey site plan. There it is, sheet 15 of 61. So basically, the lot itself in the back is the majority of the lot with all the parking is part of this ownership. They've increased the number of parking spaces by removing the ATM that was there for the bank. And now RVDI has developed a nice site plan that has landscaped islands that correspond to the new landscape regulations that P&Z adopted. We have 4 islands that are low to the ground with the curbing, so water can go into the islands, which I think the commission had asked for that last time. There are 2 site lights on the property now. We're going to relocate them and put new ones in, put two back in, new ones. And then Matt Pop has done a nice job adding in landscaping in the islands and along the property lines surrounding the dumpster recycling area. We have 4 EV chargers, 2 EV chargers that will service 4 cars. And the traffic pattern that Tony DeAndrea has done is 2-way coming in from Arcadia on the first, I'll call it the first entrance to this whole back area. And then it's a 1-way out, but all 90-degree parking. And I think the traffic then will work much better than what it does today. Let's see, impervious last time was slightly over, which we decided that we did not want to seek a variance, nor do we need to. So we are slightly under what's there now, especially with the landscaping that's been added. In regards to a couple of comments back on the building is that in the energy narrative, we're going to, as my energy narrative said, we're going to insulate this new roof that's there, the existing roof that's there with a new spray foam insulation. We're going to spray foam the walls where on the 2 front and the rear of the building where we can, where it's not glass. But we use insulated glass for the storefronts. We are proposing to use gas-fired gas cooking, because I know that they are asking for induction cooking, but the chef has stated that for what his operation is, how he wants to do it, and the proper cooking technique is to use gas. But we are considering now, we're bringing in an MEP engineer, considering now to go to the air-cooled heat pumps for the HVAC system. That there are 2 systems that'll go in, one for the restaurant, one for the tenant. And those will be rooftop mounted and hidden by fencing that we got approved by ARC. So we think we'll improve the energy usage conservation, I should say, in the building, insulate as best we can. And the same thing will happen with the makeup air. They'll have a makeup air unit for the restaurant hood. Energy Star appliances where we can, low flush toilets and so on that meet the plumbing code. And I think that's it for now. If there's any comments that somebody has for me, or I think the landscape plan is up there now that you can begin to see what Matt has prepared.
Mr. LaRoe, you have your hand up.
Thank you. Rudy, the ADA space in the north end of the site there, is that going to be copacetic with building code, or is that serving another building that this?
Well, we have two, we need two for that amount of people. So we have one at our building. And then they have another one that's out there in the parking lot. It could be somewhere else. It just, you try to lay it out as best you can in the spacing, but we have one at the building now. And then the other one would serve other people parking in the lot. Are you questioning because maybe you want two to parcel together?
I'm just wondering, is there a distance as well? I know there's a path requirement, but is the distance, going to meet whatever criteria needs to be met?
Yeah, no, I mean, yeah, we do meet the distance by code, how far away one has to park, and we all are at least on one level. I guess we could take a look at it to see if it made sense to park in the diagonals, but in the existing parking, I'll call it, that comes off the building. And I could just clarify that with Tony, and we can and see if there's a better fit to have it. He located there, and I thought that would work pretty well for, this lot will also at times be used by other tenants, not necessarily for the restaurant, even though it's all restaurant parking and it's their private parking per se. But I know that the landlord has, other people will park there at times when the restaurant's not really operating, like in the mornings or something. So it kind of helps serve Arcadia, I guess, as well. But I'll talk to Tony about it and see.
Yeah, I'm worried that if they're both required, is that one going to be close enough to the door or whatever? But
okay. Well, it's required because of the number of parking. If you're over 1 per 25, so we have 34 plus, give or take. So we do need two handicap. So the first one wants to be at the building, which we have.
Anybody else? Mr. McRae.
Mr. Ridberg, the storefront doors to the restaurant, do all three of those doors open, or is it just that one?
So the double door that's the entrance, the active door will be on the left, but we do have a double door there that will be, fixed. Have panic hardware on it. If you want to go back to that, what was that sheet 31, I think?
Yeah, so
yeah, you can use that rendering one. So the two doors in the middle, that's the main entrance. The one on the left will be the active door. And then, of the two, right? That's the active door. The other one will be fixed with flush bolts, but we can open it up if need be, for fresh air or whatever, but they're all 3 foot wide doors. The other three are actually going to fold and stack inside, inside the building.
Okay, yeah, I didn't get that sense. I thought it looked like three separate patio doors.
We haven't decided on the actual manufacturer yet, but whether they're going to have lock rails on all of them or not. But we need some mechanism to open them, and then they'll fold inside.
ARC was looking for an electronic return. Have you done that yet?
We're in the process of pulling that all together.
Okay.
So we have to specify a light. There's a detail coming through the marquee over the Two Sparrows store,
yeah, I got a question about that. So the two Sparrows, you have the marquee, there's really kind of no detail to that. And then there's a light fixture that lights the sign.
So
it's
in
the
the
long,
ARC,
thin tube.
the ARC approval, what we're doing is we're going to take out they called it a towel bar. I thought that was kind of interesting. I did it for Theory on Greenwich Avenue. It was very successful, very minimalist. Lit up their signage way down at the bottom of Greenwich Avenue. It was custom made. I can't find the manufacturer to get somebody to put that together. So we decided that in the marquee, which if you look on the storefront end view at the right there, it's a 30-inch deep marquee, which is all going to be aluminum. We're going to come back with a small, very small LED wall wash fixture that we will put into the marquee that will light up just the Two Sparrows logo. And then we will take away that light fixture, the towel bar, they called it, that's underneath the marquee. So that'll go away. So that's one of the electronics that we have to do. I'm just trying to get the manufacturer's spec sheet and so on, so we can include it back to them. So that's pretty straightforward. And then we'll revise it in the rear elevation as well at the rear storefront. We have a small one that goes in there, and we're going to put that into the marquee as well.
Right, and then the restaurant's facade is painted brick.
Yeah,
Existing brick
the
is
whole
painted?
facade right now is currently white brick. We're going to repaint it. And there will still, the white brick will remain behind the two sparrows. We're going to add a 2-inch deep cellular PVC framework around that to differentiate the fact that it's two different tenants. They preferred to have the definition that way. It was our suggestion that we bump that out a little bit. So the texture of the brick will read through, but at the two sparrows, it'll be flush, but it will also project out a little bit.
Okay. Thanks for the clarification.
Okay. Yep.
Is the sconce okay?
Yeah, as I'm looking at that, it's actually a sconce itself. It's got a little bit more uplighting than probably would be allowed. But if ARC had seen that, right, this is the
Yeah, the problem is ARC is not always on top of the no uplighting allowed. As you may remember at Mimi's application at
Yeah.
Foundation House, they had uplighting and ARC thought it was attractive, so they approved it with uplighting, and yet our regulations forbid it. So that was the question.
right. I think this one's more of a decorative kind of thing.
Okay.
It's the light spread coming from it.
70 lumens.
Yeah, the 70 lumens
Okay.
from that thing isn't going to be
Incredible.
like
Okay.
crazy,
All right.
and it's the right temperature.
Okie dokie, Mr. Wells.
Thanks. Mr. Ridberg, part of your property is in the A13 flood zone. Could you let us know, is it in the parking lot, or is it actually your buildings? And if the building's right in that flood zone, how high above sea level are you? And have you taken any steps to mitigate against potential flooding?
The building itself is higher than it meets the FEMA standard for the height above the AE 12. I think that's there. So I think we brought that up at the last hearing at the end. Mr. DeAndre has shown on the drawing. The AE actually is out at the sidewalk, at the curb of the sidewalk there, and then the building itself is compliant. So we have a small, like most of those buildings in Sound Beach, they all have small little, shallow head height basements in there. And but our first floor is compliant here, and we're actually in the X zone for our building.
Great, thank you.
We are not in the AE. It's actually an X zone.
And you did submit the signed sewer acknowledgement, right?
I believe that Mr.
You did it the
Mr.
last time.
Mhm.
Okay. All right, Mr. Levy. Unmute if you would.
1 second here.
Okay.
So I did want to ask about the lighting in the back and the lighting for Lulu's in the front. Is there going to be commensurately some similar kind of lighting?
At the rear of the building?
At the rear and at the front?
Yeah, if we can go back to that, back to those two sheets.
Yeah, I'm on 31 here. Looking at 31, slide 31. Oh, you want to look at that? Yeah.
Slide 31, I think it's one more maybe. There we go. So the only lighting that's happening here will be, if we can zoom in one more time there, Pat, on the upper left proposed front elevation. We have the one that's over two sparrows. I just referenced that will be a linear recessed wall washer, the width of the two sparrows signage itself. That bar that you see will no longer be there. And we're going to build in a small little recessed wall washer that will light that fixture.
But nothing for Lulu's.
No, I'm sorry, say again?
Nothing for Lulu's or Juju's.
Juju's.
So Juju basically.
Juju
has
Lulu, we
a-
can't tell.
Juju basically has that little circular backlight. As I said, it's 70 lumens, which is minimal. It's just a little glow to give the building, and it glows. If you look in the on the rendering, I think
I
one
see.
rendering,
So
it shows it's just really
that's the point.
a minimalist light that will just glow a little bit at night. You could call it an uplight, downlight, side light. I mean, it just sort of glows with this little radiating light that comes out just to give it a little punch. We have street lights out there. And then in the Juju sign, it's like they did for Le Fat Poodle, which is just a very minimalist amount of light that will come through. It'll be in the color of the Juju logo. And then in the back, we're repeating the same concept in the back. We're getting rid of the towel bar look in the back and so on. So
Okay, so
very minimalist light. Actually, there's also emergency lights that are heads that are on in case, like it's required by code. They'll be tucked up underneath the awnings at the two entrances and at the two rear entrances as well. Small little globe heads that'll work off the emergency exit signs inside.
okay, well, thank you.
Okay.
All righty, anybody else? Okay.
We did get an endorsement from the Old Greenwich Merchants Association.
Gosh, you know, I've been debating whether or not to ask you that question because it's not a zoning matter. They're okay with the color of your awning?
Yeah, I believe so.
Alright.
And so was ARC.
Not ARC is not the problem. You know, OG went to having those standardized awnings, not a zoning thing. It was what they did, their local commerce. So before you ordered the awning, word to the wise, just make sure they do get that it's a different color.
Well, look at what's been at 220, just on the old restaurant. I'm drawing a blank of it now.
Yeah, yeah.
It's now called Siren.
Right,
Those
okay.
awnings are different and approved.
Yeah.
I think
And so
the
they're
beauty
fine
of
with it. So they
what
moved
did-
that away from the black swirly thing.
Yeah, and that works beautifully at that whole
Okay.
building. That's all one building. Yeah.
Yeah, I was just, it's not a zoning question, so I didn't need to
Yeah.
raise it, but okay.
Okay.
So they are happy with it because I just didn't want you guys to end up with it. All right, Deb, does anybody from the public wish to speak on this application? This is at 206 SBA. It's 206 SBA and the property is at 206 Sound Beach Avenue. Presently, or it was a bank and will now be 2 locations. Anybody wish to speak? Nope, no speakers. All right. Does anybody object to closing this application on this time? Seated on it again are Albin, McRae, Levy, Jenkins, and Wells. Seeing no objection, this application is hereby closed. Thank you very much, Mr. Rydberg.
Thank you.
Enjoy the
Have a good
rest of
evening.
your day.
And you too. Bye-bye.
All righty, our next application is Blue Meadow 29 LLC for a final site plan and special permit for a single-family home at 29 Meadowcroft Lane. And representing the applicant is Mr. Hagney. Hello, Mr. Hagney.
Good evening again, Madam Chair. For the record, Tom Hegney on behalf of the applicant. This is actually the third house that I have worked on this property. We had one approved by wetlands only 3-4 years ago. That was an interesting design. It was designed in Brazil, converting metric dimensions to feet and inches was an interesting experience. That one, although wetlands approved it, did not go forward. It was actually closer to the water than either of the 2 houses that the commission has seen. Then in 21, we brought to you a house that was 12,495 square feet with an accessory building of 1,684 square feet. Essentially 258 square feet less than what the current application is. That was reviewed by wetlands and signed off. It didn't have a full hearing, and the commission approved it. That plan was actually going to cut down a significant number of evergreens along the road, which are now street trees, because the driveway was going to be in the middle of the site rather than where it is now. This plan calls for utilizing the existing drive. House site is roughly the same as what had been approved with the last one. We have the sports barn that is a little farther down the hill, same size as the guest house and the last. And we have spent a number of hearings with the wetland agency, had an extensive landscape plan put together that the wetland agency then supported unanimously in approving the plan back in April. We have health department approval for the septic system. Engineering has also signed off, meets all the zoning regulations. It also meets the special exception standards where the accessory building over 1,200 square feet is subordinate in size, design, and location to the main house. Of course, it's 1,600 square feet to 12,000 square feet. It's not going to create traffic or pollution or hazard or be detrimental to the neighborhood. I think those are all the issues that need to be addressed as far as this. We also have 85.5% green space, whereas 78 is required.
We had
and-
two issues come up during the briefing yesterday. One of them was this question of whether or not, and I believe it's in the staff report, of whether or not there's going to be lighting on the tennis court.
Answer is no.
No lighting on the tennis court. And we would, of course, you understand condition, and that would be a condition. The second thing, and we discussed, as I recall, is the issue of an inconsistency between the master plan for the landscaping and the drainage systems.
I know that was an issue in 21.
It is
because
in Ms. Pruitt's staff report. I don't think I misread this. Yep, what she's got is landscape master plan does not seem to be coordinated with the proposed drainage system, specifically the rain garden. Staff suggests a rain garden planting plan be provided and the landscape master plan be integrated with the drainage and overall site design.
that seems to be a perfectly acceptable condition.
And I think we could condition that you do that. That's an easy thing.
That's fine.
So the next thing, you don't have any impact on any town trees, do you?
No, we're leaving the driveway exactly where it is. The last plan took out, I don't know, 8 or 9.
Again, staff
to
raised this
install the new
question.
driveway.
So that's why I'm asking. All right. Oh, Mr. DeAndrea has his hand up. Is he working with you on this?
He is.
Well, why don't we see if maybe he's already talked to Jackie about the issue with the landscaping and the drainage? Of course, for that. Oh, there he comes. I just cross your fingers that the unmuting works. Mr. DeAndrea, if you would unmute, I think you want to answer Jackie's question.
I would, thank you. I was only going to answer that question that the landscape plan is always a work in progress. They set the target grades. We work with them. We definitely have the rain guard. It's all been approved and we'll coordinate, as Mr. Higney said. That was
Okay,
all.
so we're just going to condition that. Okay,
Yep.
Okay, so those are the two things I'm seeing from the staff report. Is there anything else? Engineering was all right with it. Is there anything else from the commission? Any questions or comments on this?
Yes, Mr. Hegney.
Yes, Mr. Becker.
Let's talk about the size and use of the accessory structure, the barn. I have a sports court. I have an accessory, 2-story accessory barn with just seems an overabundance of space that's suspect to me. The
Uh,
upper story. I've got all kinds of tables and chairs and things happening. Is it a viewing gallery or a meeting room? That's the first thing I'm thinking. Then the second, I have this wide open space, a garage, 2 full-size bathrooms, and what looks like locker space. So, talk to me about the intent of this building, because as I see it, it leads me to thinking this is something a lot more than just a tennis pavilion, if you know what I mean.
It can also double as a hockey rink. And probably will have as much or more activity for that as it would for a tennis or basketball court. And family is very much into that and has children that play and skate. And this is what they're looking to have as an important amenity for their household.
So that now explains the garage. That's where the Zamboni is, correct?
Yes.
And it's 1,684 square feet?
Yes.
Okay, so we're about 4,000 above, or 400 above the 12,000.
Right. And as I said earlier, surprisingly, when I looked at the plans for the house that was approved in 2021, the accessory building was exactly the same size.
There's
But
no
when
way
you
to
look
pinch
at
out this, there's no way to pinch out the 400 square feet to bring this down to 12?
Well, it's interesting. It hasn't been that long that the commission has been looking at these kinds of applications. Previously, they went to the Board of Appeals as a special exception.
It's been several years now, I think, or is that just COVID?
No, it has been several years. And
I want to say, I know we all get confused about the timing nowadays. Okay.
But when the Board of Appeals has looked at these, the most important one is it subordinate in size, design, and location to the main house? and certainly that is the case here. The second is it causing pollution? Is it causing traffic? Is it causing noxious odors or any other kind of pollution or negative impact on the neighborhood? I don't think it does any of those. This is intended for family use, and
I think my concern is
as such.
My concern is, as I see this, and we actually had this discussion about another hockey rink somewhere else.
We also had it about the baseball field, so just keep right on going.
That. Totally forgot.
Okay. But just keep right on going. Mr.
I think
I
we
see
withdrew that appeal.
Right. There's a big situation here, and I think Mr. Wells maybe have pointed this out, is that there's a parking area outside this barn. Okay, so I'm driving down to the barn and I can park 4 cars. I have lots of locker space. I have lots of room inside this building. My logical conclusion to this is that something else is happening here larger than the family going out to skate in the afternoon in the winter. And my concern would be is this going to be some kind of an organized area for tournament play, lessons, something other than, we're just going to go out and skate around for a little while.
So, Mr. Mac,
and then go run inside and get warmed up.
So, Mr. McRae, since we are vastly experienced now in this area, the baseball field, 2 hockey rinks, maybe 3, we've done this. What do we care about? No lighting, no, and here's how, and I don't remember exactly how we conditioned it when we did them, but we don't want ongoing team play with, major events of competitive play. It's fine for the family to use it, but we don't want this to turn into a competitive sports facility because that's not allowed in a residential zone. And second, your favorite, no amplified sound. Okay, so it's not going to run at night anyway, because they're not going to light it. No amplification of any sound. And despite having lockers, as I remember, I can't remember, Mr. Hegney, whether we conditioned it on both the last hockey rink we got, and also the baseball field, but it's just a question of no big, huge team events that turn you into a competitive sports facility.
Correct.
Okay. So that's what we've done.
Okay, so
We
I'm
keep
understanding
the-
that. That's great.
My
So-
favorite saying, we're keeping the church in the village. It has to be residential use, family enjoyment, as Mr. Hegney is laying it out there. He is representing that. Okay, so that would be what we would want to, the direction we'd move in.
we're gonna move in.
Mm-hmm.
And I think actually, as we discuss this further, I think we have to be very specific. I don't have the language in front of me.
Okay,
About what we did in the previous ones,
let's
but
get it.
I do remember.
Somebody sued
that-
us?
Yeah.
Yes.
Everybody does. We did have an issue with one hockey rink
Mm-hmm.
where I believe we discussed lighting.
Mm-hmm.
We discussed no lighting. And then the lighting
want
actually
it.
came in and then they came back. And, here it is. Okay, I have,
He wanted lighting from the beginning.
we
that
talk about
guy-
it today and then in 2 months,
Right.
I'm getting,
Right.
because when do you skate in the wintertime?
Right. But
Mhm.
again, we prohibit it now. The last one, they wanted lighting from the beginning because they said that during skating season, they can't practice in the evening unless they have lighting, unless the kids have lighting when they get home. And that was their argument. These people aren't saying that, so we're going to take them at their word, no lighting. The last guy wanted lighting. Patrick, is your memory
Yeah,
going
and
to
it was,
improve?
just to add to the recollection, it was a peculiar style of lighting. It was almost like string lights. that were over
Yes.
the-
Oh,
and it
thank you. I
wasn't,
had forgotten that.
And
Yes.
it wasn't the spotlights that you would typically see
Yeah.
with a sports
I'd
complex.
forgotten about those.
They were trying to be quote unquote residential or minimal in nature, but they, given the area outside, it was obviously an area of concern.
Yep. Okay. So, I mean, this is always that fine line we got to walk. It's got to stay residential use, but people have their property and they have a right to enjoy it as they see fit for their kids. So we don't have the language. I think we're going to need to go back and look at the language, Mr. Hegney. So I would suggest we not close this application tonight just to give us time, or we could close it and just not decide it. Would be easiest.
Well, what are we've got everything, right? Mr. Hagney?
We
got
have
the
everything.
zoning,
So
Engineering, health is good on 10 bedrooms.
So we would close it and we would just decide it once we've dug out the language that we need from the previous
Okay.
applications.
Yeah. And Mr. Hagney, I just want, just to
staff
double
could
check.
I'm
provide that
sorry,
to you.
Mr. Hegney, you're muttering. I can't hear you.
Perhaps staff could provide that to you.
You mean right at the moment?
Yes.
The PNC secretary doesn't normally like to have stuff that's given to him at the last minute. I don't know, staff, do you have that language? Do you remember what we did? I don't even remember the addresses.
I can recall one of them. The other I'd have to go back and perhaps
and-
Mr. Hagney.
And
The-
just to be, I'm sorry, go ahead, Patrick.
The other one would be the baseball situation, which I'm not recalling off the top of my head.
And my friend,
Which is of course across the pond.
so Mr. Hegney, just to remind you, we would close it. And this application isn't even a must open till July. So you would have a decision from us in 2 weeks, or July 6th, I think is our next meeting, right? So
Correct.
we are moving you along. So I know you'd like to see faster rather than slower, but it's fair to let everybody figure out what language we've used, because you do want us to be consistent.
Yes, of course.
Next time you
And-
have
And I
you have one of
appreciate you
these.
moving it along.
Yeah, and next time you have one of these, you'll give us the language because you'll know, or we'll remember to ask it for it ahead of time. Mr. Levy, did you have a question? Okay, I'm gonna mute him because I think he's got his hand up, but he's also talking to someone else. All right, so I think he can. All right, quickly, while I'm waiting for Mr. Levy's question. Oh, wait, Mr. Levy, are you back? Yes, hello.
I'm back. Sorry about that. UPS. So I could you just help me? Give me some kind of explanation that makes me understand how this works with the sports court and the facility down there. So why is there a road that goes down there, and why is there parking? Just give me an idea of how that works.
I'm not gonna laugh. I'm just gonna let Mr. Hegney answer that question.
They also will be using this as an entertainment area. And they want to make sure that they can have vehicles that are coming to cater that, get down there and get back up.
Okay, again, we will ask that there be no amplified sound.
Okay, I just wanted to get that. That's
Yeah,
fair.
it was a very good question because originally we were laughing that you needed a car to drive down to your sports facility, but if it's that vehicles are also going to access it directly for entertaining, I think the neighbors will help enforce that this not become problematic. All right.
We are a good 400 or 500 feet from the neighbor.
Yeah, I was trying to figure that
across
out
the
after the
pond.
briefing. Yeah, I was trying to figure that out after the briefing, how far you really were. So I'm glad you said that. May I turn to for public comment?
Please.
All righty. Does anybody from the public wish to speak on this application? It is at 29 Meadowcroft Lane, and it is Blue Meadow 29 LLC. Just raise your virtual hand if you wish to speak. Nope. Okay. Nobody wishes to speak. There's all these people here and I don't know what they're here for. All righty. Okay, so does anybody from the commission have further questions at this time? Nope. Does anybody object to closing this application and with the understanding that we would not decide it tonight, that we will decide it at our next meeting? Okay.
No objection here.
Seeing no objection. And at the time that we decide it, I am going to write this down so we don't forget. It's Alban, Wells, Macri. Is that correct? No, it's Levy I missed. It's Alban and Wells seated for low. Alban, Macri, Levy, Wells, and Yeski.
Yeski. Yep.
All right. So just make sure, because we've got so many different people that the seating's jiggling around so much. All right. Thank you, Mr. Hegney.
All right. Thank you, Madam Chair. I'll see you a little later.
All right. Don't sound sad.
No, not at all.
All right.
Looking forward to it.
All right. Our next application. Mr. Seaman. Okay, our next application is Stephen C. Friedheim for a final coastal site plan and special permit on at 1 Smith Road for some changes to an existing house or plans. Hello, Mr. Seaman.
Good evening, Madam Chair and members of the commission. My name is Evan Seaman. I'm a lawyer at Robinson and Cole, and I'm here on behalf of the applicant, Stephen Friedheim, located at 1 Smith Road. And we have some of our team members here this evening that I'd like to introduce just so that staff could get them joined and able to speak when appropriate. So we have our civil engineers from Rizzoli Planning and Engineering, John Giancola and Joe Rizzoli. Our project architect is Vicki Braun from Brian Brown Architect.
I think you may be able to keep them as attendees and just talk to the commission, but so I won't bring them in now and then we'll
Okay,
see
sure.
if we need
Sure.
anyone, Mr. Seaman.
Thank you.
Okay.
And then the last team member is landscape architect Timothy Lynch from Catherine Herman Design. So this is an application in which we are seeking modifications to a special permit and coastal site plan, which were approved in 2020 by the commission. And the purpose of this application, of this modification, is to expand a slight addition to the main house, particularly the guest wing, and also a reduction in size to a greenhouse, which was previously approved.
Mhm.
So by downsizing the greenhouse, we propose to remove 135 square feet of floor area and about 2,842 cubic feet of volume from the greenhouse, and then allow an increase, essentially put that onto the guest wing of the house, allowing an increase of 135 square feet of floor area and 2,748 cubic feet of volume to the guest wing addition. And I just want to emphasize that there will be no change to the overall floor area for this site. And there will be a reduction in cubic feet from about 260,000 cubic feet to 259,968 cubic feet. There are also some other modifications which we've proposed, and our team can go over them in more detail. But I just wanted to note a couple things before turning it over to our team members. We obtained a variance from the Zoning Board of Appeals back in 2019 with respect to site-wide floor area ratio. And as I mentioned, this commission has approved coastal site plan and special permit for this property and this project, and now we're coming back for modifications to that. Town staff initially reviewed the project back in December, and after consulting them, it was determined that we should proceed with these applications tonight. And we also obtained administrative declaratory rulings from wetland staff, which are part of your record. One thing I did want to note is we received staff comments regarding a landscaping plan that's part of the comments in your packet. And we have since provided a revised landscaping plan. And we've also included further revisions to that landscaping plan based on Ms. Pruitt's recommendations. And now I would like to turn it over to.
So
Vicky
before you,
Bond.
let's just see if anybody wants to ask you any questions. So,
Yeah.
So the outstanding, you had the outstanding issue with your landscape plan, which you have now submitted. And in addition, I understand that late this afternoon, you did sign the sewer acknowledgement.
Yes.
All right.
I sent-
Did we receive that? I don't have anything in
Yes,
my.
yes. We got an email at from Jackie at like
Very early
3:30.
this morning, yeah.
No,
I
on the sewer, it was like,
Oh, no, I'm
You
sorry, the
sent it.
sewer, yes, no, I'm sorry, I think we said the landscaping, that's what I heard. I
no,
apologize.
the sewer, was it you that sent it, Patrick, around 4?
Oh, wait a minute.
okay.
I'm looking at this right now. It was just submitted. I mean,
Mm.
literally, as
Yeah.
we were an hour into the meeting.
Yes. Which is why I sometimes sound confused during meetings.
Confused. I think this is like, okay, great. But I'm like knee deep into something else here.
Yes, I
get
know.
this?
Yes, multitasking is hard, but it got done.
I'm real issues with this.
With what?
You know, I'm looking for something over here. It comes in over here. I don't know what's going on. And here we are an hour later. It's
Yeah.
like, oh, wait a
Well,
minute. Here it is. So,
As you guys pointed out, when I messed up in the beginning, that's why there's several of us here to keep each
right.
other, to
And
be.
just
one of
to
us is
kind of go
looking.
off the rails here a little.
Yeah.
We had discussions about this kind of situation before, and I just want to point it out again.
Yep.
Last ditch minute stuff.
Yep.
So now that I'm on a roll, make
Yeah.
this easy.
Mhm.
Mr. Seaman, quick question about your FAR issues.
Yes.
Where can, oh, there it is. Okay, you said there's no change in FAR.
That's what has been represented to us.
Okay, does that encounter the proposed new playhouse?
The Playhouse is not new. It's previously approved. But I believe it does. Our project architect is here and.
Architect, raise your hand, please, now.
Okay,
This
because
would
on
be
the site plan that I'm looking at, all the bits and pieces here, this is page C, whoops. Where'd it go?
Oh, okay, you got it.
C20 of the Rizzoli set. It says proposed playhouse as something that's new. Or is this the old one?
Yeah,
We're looking at it just for reference.
perhaps Mr. Rizzoli can explain that too. I believe what he did was he utilized the prior site plan and overlaid on top of that in color, in different colors, proposed changes to show what's new in what was previously approved. So I defer to Mr. Rizzoli to
because I just want to make sure, kind of going through the plans, I understand it, but I'm not sure seeing correctly what is being done.
Sure. Is Mr. Rizzoli on?
I'm not seeing him. Patrick, oh, there he is. Okay. Mr. Rizzoli, if you would unmute. Mr. Rizzoli? I don't think he's able to unmute for some reason.
In the meantime, you
Thank
can
you,
look
Ms.
at-
Brown.
Sure, you can look at sheet 9 of the Rizzoli documents, which is the site plan showing in one color the things that were previously approved, and then in another color the things that we that are different from that approval.
What drawing number is that? C2? or-
It's SH2, but it's the 9th sheet of Rizzoli's package.
SH2, you said.
Mhm.
Okay, so green was existing, previously approved, and red is new.
Correct.
Does that answer your question, Nick?
So the green, the playhouse shows as green, so that is existing, or was
That was
approved, I guess those things.
previously approved, yes.
Okay. Okay.
Well, what we can do, Nick, is it's very simple for us to address this. The applicant is representing that there's no change in the FAR. We can just ask that that be confirmed. As a condition of approval, the applicant has represented this and the applicant is to confirm that with the ZEO.
Mhm.
I mean, he's got to do that anyway.
Yeah, he's gonna have to do that anyway.
So, right. Anything else?
There's also a cupola, which is abiding by the height exception for cupolas. What's that? So it is.
Ooh, hold on just a second on that. I think I have a comment on that that I hadn't thought about before. I need to look at something. It's in 6127. Patrick, did you get a chance to look? Okay. My two family, okay, no, it's all right. I couldn't remember how we had worded the cupola exception, but I see. So you're saying the height is not more than 25% above the height limits. And the cumulative square foot of the structure is not in excess of 5% of the footprint of the roof area of the building.
It's
Or
actually
100
not 25% of the roof area and
on
less
5,
than
yeah,
17
I'm
feet
sorry,
above
5
roof
per,
level.
it's 5%. It has to be 5% of the roof area. less than 5 or
I
less than
just, I
100.
just looked at your website like 5 minutes ago
Yes, it,
for the code.
the cumulative square
it
foot of these
change?
areas shall not exceed 5% of the footprint of the roof area of the building or 100 square feet, whichever is less. Is that correct?
I thought it says 25% of the roof area.
No, that's the height, ma'am. We're talking about the square foot area.
You're talking about section 6-127?
Yes,
I am talking about
6127.
6127. It has 2
F.
sections under F. Section 1 is the height can't exceed 25%. And section 2 is the cumulative square foot area of the cupola has to be the lower of 100 square feet or 5%.
Just a second.
I believe we addressed this in our project narrative. So I believe the cupola is 56.25 square feet. In floor
So
area.
quick, someone do some math and tell, it's 56 feet high at its top.
No.
Floor
It-
area.
It says a single structure not exceeding 25% of the roof area. Height of such structure shall not be more than 17 feet above the roof level.
What?
Section 6-127 Greenwich Municipal Code, height exceptions.
Okay, and
What are you, wait a minute, what are you
Wait,
reading?
Are you
F.
reading it from art? Did you go to General Code Publishers or is this from our website?
Are you on F in our website?
It was from the Greenwich Municipal Code that I just read.
Okay,
Okay.
but where did you find it?
Online.
Are you on the Town of Greenwich website was what Patrick just asked you?
I believe I was, but
Because I'm looking at our regulation and I know for a total fact, we haven't changed this regulation in 5 years. And what I have in front of me is accurate and it is
okay.
height shall not be more than 25% above the height limit. Now, what is your height on this?
Our height is 30, the height of the building is 33.6. The top of the cupola we'll take it to 50 feet.
That is more than 25%. Somebody who's good at arithmetic, do it for me, but I'm pretty sure that the difference between 33 and 50 is more than 25%. Where's my
Okay,
phone?
so
About 8 feet.
we'll have to bring it down to abide by that then.
Yeah. I'm so glad you mentioned it. As soon as you said it, I was like, oh, there's something wrong with that. Okay. And now then your other thing is, do you know how many square feet it is in area?
Yes, but I would have to find it in the documentation.
Okay. So Patrick knows this
It's
stuff in
roughly 8 by 8, so it's like
64. I
yeah.
can do that. That math I can do. All right. I was
I'm
just
gonna send
having,
it to Mr. Seaman right now, the link to it, so that I think
Also-
I had a Mrs. Braun's email, so.
also, Ms. Braun, just so you know, the way this is written, and someone will clarify it for you, it isn't 25% above the existing structure. It's 25% above the height limit for that structure.
Right.
So you would turn to section 6205 in our regulations, and what's the max height? Patrick?
Well, accessory building is 25 feet, so.
It's
that-
not an
this is-
accessory
It's
building.
in the main building.
Mhm.
So,
Oh,
it's on-
I'm sorry, I thought it was the greenhouse. I apologize.
no, it's the cupola. So
Yes,
on the
so-
main building,
I believe this is the 1 acre zone. I think it's 30
yeah.
feet.
35
my
feet.
God.
So
I'm
your
glad you-
building is 34 feet.
33.6.
Doesn't matter. The
33.6?
the 33.6 doesn't matter, Nick.
Oh, no. I'm just saying what it is, 33.6. And then I'm looking at the drawing here and then the above that, it's another 15 feet for the cupola itself, plus or minus.
So your cupola can be a max height of 43.75 feet is the answer I'm getting.
Yep.
Calculator. I can't multiply 35 times 25% in my head, but so that's it. So, and I'm so glad you mentioned it. It would have been caught before zoning permit, but at least you've got it now and you can just fix it quick.
Yes, and this
Ms.
was after some back and forth with zoning.
So just so you know,
Just so you know.
okay, I don't know how that happened, where that's wrong, because this section I know is current. We got a lot of stuff where you got to go back and forth because we haven't integrated into the book yet. But I know that this regulation hasn't been changed in maybe 6 years, actually. So
2016, Madam Chair. So, yeah.
6 years, nailed it. So one of the most painful regulation changes we ever did, but y'all don't want to hear that.
We've got more of them to come.
No, nothing was as hard as that. So I'm glad you mentioned that, but it would have been caught. And if zoning, I know Patrick knows this stuff inside and out. So just talk to Patrick and he'll make sure you've got the right copy. What happens is that if you went to that Municode website, Municode doesn't always update, and we have trouble with the town's ordinances sometimes finding the current version because I go to Municode and Patrick says to me,
Gotcha.
So, all right. So I'm glad you brought that up. So we can condition that. Is there any other questions or comments? Any other things you want to correct now, Ms. beforehand? No? Any other questions or comments on this from the commission? All righty. Does anybody in the public wish to speak on this application? This is at 1 Smith Road. And it is an application by Stephen C. Friedheim, and it's to make modifications to previously approved and built structure, partially built, right? All right. Okay. So with that, seeing no questions from the public or comments, are you okay with closing this application, folks?
We're gonna let, we're okay with actually not having the proper drawing for us for the cupola.
We can ask
We'll
them
let
to come
staff
back.
and zoning enforcement handle that.
I was okay because if Ms. Brown hadn't raised it, we wouldn't even have caught it and Jody would have caught it anyway. So it would have been Jody making them fix the cupola.
And
Anyway.
that's being wrong. Okay, that's fine.
And it's just luck. Yeah, but none of us looked at it. I mean, none of us questioned the height. And if Ms. Brown hadn't said it, she would have been held up with CEO. And Ms. Brown may have given you an old regulation, you think, huh? Maybe mention to Patrick who that was so we can just make sure they have the new one. We won't yell
Okay,
at them.
great. Thank you.
We,
All right.
just on the issue of the cupola, we did, I believe it was Mr. Rozzoli or someone on his team who did reach out to Mr. Couture back in January of this year to get a determination as to whether it complied with the regulations. And I'm looking at an email now in which he responds that it complies. Pat, can I forward that?
Why don't you do that, Mr. Seaman, and we'll
We can
just,
put it in the record, Evan, and then we will
yeah.
Consider it.
reach back out.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a little bit of a discrepancy in where we're measuring the height from, but I will
Okay.
double check with the CEO.
Well, so yeah, that could be, Patrick, it could be that they measured it from the actual height of the building.
Exactly. And so there's a couple feet there that are available. And so that may,
I mean, maybe, but you still wouldn't have gotten to 50.
no, 50, that, right. 50 is a little bit, unless he
Because-
determined it's not a cupola, but I don't want to get into semantics right now, but yeah.
Well, that could be. So that's the best thing to do then is we'll just let you guys address it.
Right.
Yeah, it would be actually, the cupola would be lower if they use the actual height of the building rather than higher.
Sure. And I just forwarded that to you, Pat.
Thank you.
Okay. It's just possible, Mr. Seaman, that they were referring to that old regulation, but unlike
Yeah,
them.
it could be.
Well, or maybe he didn't think it was a cupola. We'll figure it out.
Thanks.
So, okay, no objection to this application closing. We will therefore close it. And
Public comment, I'm sorry, Madam Chair.
I did that.
Oh,
I
thank you.
did that. Yes,
Sorry.
I actually, I got with it after the first application tonight. So just again, if nobody objects to closing, we will do so. And the seated people, just so you all know, is Levy, Wells, and Macri, Yeski, and Albin. Because Lo, you're seeing him here, but until he turns on his vid, he's not here. He's just staying, got 1 foot in each meeting. All righty, Mr. Basili, it's time. So Mr. Seaman, we have closed this application, and if Mr. McRae and everybody's comfortable, because he was had some questions, but we may decide it or we may not tonight. Thank you very much. And
Thank
with that, Mr. Basili, time for you to take the rest of the night off. Wait, he's got his
Okay.
tie loosened already.
I was getting tired and hot.
No respect, no respect.
Fix it.
All right, there, now you look fancy. You can go loosen it as soon as you leave us. Thank you,
Thanks.
sir. We'll see you the next time.
All right, thanks a lot. Bye-bye.
All righty, Mr. Hegney.
Good evening again, Madam Chair.
When we discussed your pre-application yesterday at Brunswick, we felt that the most important thing that we wanted to see from you didn't happen, which is you didn't ask us key questions and you didn't give us a narrative on where you are headed with the school itself, its programs, its attendance, its enrollment, all of that. We got a set of plans, but that doesn't answer our fundamental question, which is what's the programmatic impact of this application? That would be our first question to you. And then do you have 2 or 3 questions that you wish to ask us?
I do. I wanted to start out by telling you what this application is not. And it
Okay.
is not an increase in enrollment, and it is not a change in program. This is primarily driven by mechanical upgrades. The main high school building is not air conditioned. And the mechanical systems are in significant need of improvement and upgrade. We came to you twice in the last 6 years. Once to improve the library and create a new entrance between the north building and the rest of the high school. And then we came last year and got approval for an addition to create space for the health and wellness program, which is ongoing in the school, but they wanted to have a specific place for it. Rather than proceeding with either of those construction projects, the school said, we really need to look at the overall building, because when we start talking about how the mechanical systems are going to be handled for each of these new spaces, it appeared that it was cascading into other needs within the rest of the building. They were also, again, looking at security issues and having security vestibules, both in the front of the building and behind it, and to be able to integrate the east side with the west side better in terms of walking paths and security there as well. So that's what is bringing us here. That's the driving force. The first is mechanical. Second is utilization, better utilization of space. We're only adding about 1,500 square feet from what you previously have approved. And that's primarily the vestibules and new entrances to the main building. So coordinating with the campus, a bit of site work, changing a driveway entrance from one side of a building to the other to provide for better walkways from what we refer to as the Pettingill building, the building between Mar and Maple, with the main building on the west side of Mar, and to be able to provide better security. That's what's driving this. There is no increase in program, no increase in enrollment. This is to provide for a better facility for everyone who's there. one of my questions is, can we submit this as one application to the commission when we have properties on both sides of Mar Avenue? Can we treat this as we are looking to develop it as one property and one application?
So we thought that that's, for some reason, we had never focused on this issue. You have one address for both sides of the street.
The
are
addresses here
100
are confusing. I would
Okay, so you're
certainly agree
100
with
on
that.
both sides, but you are not one lot, and nor can you become one lot because you have a road in between. I would say I'm not the attorney, I only stay at the Holiday Inns thing, but I would say from a legal point of view, you would be much safer submitting it as one application for two different addresses or lots, but that you maintain that distinction because you can't merge the property that crosses the road, right? And it's this weird thing that you have one address, you should have two.
I think the addresses are obviously something we can resolve with your staff. My recollection is that when we did the Acura dealer where Honda was, that we actually submitted that as one application, even though it was divided by Mason Street from one side, from the east side and west side of Mason Street. Because it was going to operate as one facility, we needed to have the parking associated with both the repair and the purchase and sales of cars. So we treated it as one entity, even though it was two separate parcels.
I think that's what the chair is suggesting, is that you make an application, but we need to be specific as to the parts. Is that correct, Madam Chair? Right.
Right. Yes, that is correct.
Mr. Hegney, the property on the east side of Mar is one full lot.
It's a lot that fronts both on Maple, where the main parking area is, and also on Mar.
Right, so all the faculty housing, the so on and so forth, the old school building on North Maple, that kind of thing, that's all on one big piece of property then?
Yeah,
Okay,
that's all one piece.
playing
As
this out.
as are the pieces on the west side of Mar,
Mhm.
where we have a couple of pieces on Patterson and on Northfield and on Sherwood. Those have all been integrated into one parcel, which we did as part of the Wellness Center application, where we needed to have additional lot area to provide for the roughly 7,000 square feet we were looking to build.
Okay, playing this out beyond the commission, do you foresee this being getting unwieldy as part of the permitting process with having one decision from us and go through the process? Or do you think maybe it's actually just multiple copies of the same decision letter covering everything? It's two different properties with two different ID numbers, correct?
Yes, and
Okay.
I did speak with the architects about that. The way we would handle that is when we submit for the zoning permit sign off, we would provide separate packages for each building. And then have the memo that would cover everything attached to each of those. Because when we go get a zoning permit and a building permit, it's going to be for each building.
Mhm.
And since we're dealing with multiple buildings, I thought that could work.
Mhm.
But it would be the same zoning permit sign off memo that would be attached to all of them.
So
Same
Mr.
conditions.
Mr. Hegney, have you talked to our town land use attorney at all about this?
I have not. I thought since we had done this before, we could take that
Yep.
approach again, but I'm more than happy to review it with Mr. Wetmore or Ms.
No, I'm
McKeachie.
just curious if my point was just, is there any kind of legal downside to us continuing as we have done?
I don't think so. The school is not going to be selling off a portion of the campus. This is very much integrated as one upper school project, and that's why we
Well,
want to present it as such.
Well, accounting tells you to assume going concern, but I'm not sure that zoning does. Let me let Mr. Wells and then Mr. LaRose speak.
Before we go on, I just want to make sure I understand exactly scope, because it's a west side. It's 2 additions for infill of the existing building, some site work for patios, etc., and underground utilities. And then on the east side, again, underground utilities, closing up a curb cut, opening up a new curb cut, more parking, lots of sidewalks, looks like an outdoor amphitheater, that kind of thing. It's more of hardscape, a hard landscape kind of thing. Is that correct?
Yes, the east side is really landscaping and site work.
Okay.
There is a pavilion that would be over some of the brick pavers, but it's an open structure. The only closed structure would be the guard booth.
Okay,
So there's
and
no
then the
additional
guard
square
booth,
footage other than that being added.
just, I think actually a clarification of the guard booth location. Why is it out in the middle of nowhere like that? And not to get into the security concerns, but as a guard booth, and this is my concern, I'm sure you would understood this from yesterday. It's a guard booth in what would be normally a residential neighborhood. To me, it's a little bit of out of place. And if it's someone actually looking up and down the street, that kind of stuff, is there some way that could be integrated into the neighborhood itself, as opposed to something that looks like a guard shack at a parking lot?
I thought that the choice of shack was probably an inopportune one.
Oh, you can say inappropriate. Knock yourself out.
It was, and I said, why is Mr. McRae calling it a guard shack? And then I looked at the plan, and it's only because we call it a guard shack on our plan. So yeah, I do like to go through and look at how the language is used on each of these plans before you get to see it. And I missed that one. Kiosk, house, something along those lines would certainly fit better in with the neighborhood than shack. The thought is, and we can have the architects join in on this, because they do not only the architecture, but the landscape architecture as well, is you can see from the overall site plan that we have a walkway coming from the building that faces toward Maple to the main entrance into the building on the west side of Mar. And the idea is this would be providing an observer to make sure that there's safety on the campus. And we had looked at putting it on the other side and thought that this was better to serve both campus elements, and as part of creating that better pathway and walkway from what's called the Pettingill building on Maple with the main classroom building.
Okay, thank you.
Next.
Mr. Wells, yeah, sorry.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Mr. Hagney, you mentioned that the mechanicals upgrade involved, touching the cooling systems or actually adding air conditioning. Are you going to be touching the heating system as well to create one, integrated heating and cooling, or you really just adding cooling and leaving the whatever is there now untouched on the heating side.
I believe that it's going to be a full upgrade, but we do have both the head of school, Tom Phillip, in attendance, and architects, James Puckhaber from SLAM is available and can answer that question for you.
Okay, and
if
I
you'd
just
like
want to add one more thing before they get on.
Sure.
If you are going to be touching both,
Don't need them.
if you've got a non-fossil fuel solution like air source, heat pumps, geothermal, anything like that, that would be very well received by EMAC.
Understood.
Mr. Lauro,
Thank you.
Mr. Lauro.
Oh, sorry. The only issue, Madam Chair, I would see in a application where the properties are across the street from each other would be if they weren't in common ownership and we needed to make some agreement with parking, but that's not the case here. So I think obviously we can turn to council, but I don't think there'll be an issue except the applicant is making an all or nothing application with, so that was my 2 cents.
Okay. Any other questions or comments from the commission? Does anybody from the public wish to speak about the Brunswick application? Please do so now. Raise your virtual hand. Nobody from the public. Okay, Mr. Hegney, so there it is. No more shack, I guess was.
Yes.
And
Kiosk is sort of, I think, one of the names in the running.
I don't think we have an issue with your doing it as separate applications, but it does seem wise to me for you to just make sure there's no case law that could hurt either the town in approving you in the future or the school, just to make sure.
Mean filing it as one application for the
Yeah.
two properties. Yes.
Yeah, and just see that there's no precedent because you don't want someone to come after the approval at some point. Otherwise, okay. And so you have now let us know that there's no programmatic change and this is mostly for not infrastructure, but for mechanicals.
It's mechanicals,
and safety improvement.
Safety improvements, joining the buildings all together so you have a uniform look of the pieces on the west side, and then site work.
Okay.
It may look like it's a big project, but
it does.
And there are a lot of things that are going to be very expensive to do, but overall, it doesn't change what's happening on the campus now.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Mr. Hegney.
Mr.
All
Hegney,
right.
just brief suggestion. With the applications as one, I think actually when talking about the projects aspects, just predicate everything on east and west. That way there's no confusion as to what we're looking at.
Oh, no, it's so much fun when we're confused.
What she said.
That's never the goal, Madam Chair.
All right. You say so. Okay. Thank you, Mr. Hegney.
All right. Thank you, Madam Chair.
All righty. So that ends the hearing part and we can now move into decision mode. And we have several applications to do. We have everybody back on board and yours truly is going to make sure we got all the right folks seated. So we have Country Day. We have 206 Sound Beach Avenue. We have Blue Meadow. And we have Freedom. I'm sorry. Blue Meadow we're not going to do tonight because Nick, we're going to look through some research. So we have just Country Day, Sound Beach, and Stephen Freedom at One Smith. I will give this a crack. I'll start. Nick, are you okay with starting with Country Day?
Yeah. We got two parts to that. We
Yeah.
got a subdivision first and
Yeah.
then,
So I make them not as detailed. I mean, I'll just, so in regard to the subdivision on Country Day, I hereby move that this application is neither a subdivision nor a re-subdivision. And in so doing, the commission notes that this application does not rise to the status of a subdivision because there is no sale or development proposed for the property at 48 Fairfield, which is becoming a separate and distinct, which is going to be recreated as a separate and distinct parcel. And that there are at this point no outstanding departmental comments, but these shall be addressed should they arise in future. Do I have a second?
Second.
Mr. Lowe, Mr. Wells, okay, I'm getting there. Mr. Wells has seconded. Then McRae,
aye.
Jenkins,
Aye.
Lowe,
Aye.
Wells,
Aye,
Yeski. No, not Yeski.
I'm taking his place.
Yes, you are. And Albin is also an aye. Wells, did you vote?
Yeah, I voted aye.
Okay, all righty. With that, we go to Nick, who will do a better job. Nick,
Okay, this is.
we're gonna do the site plan.
Site plan.
I'm gonna help here, though. I'm gonna say seated on this application is Albin, McRae, Jenkins, Lowe, and Wells for Yeski. Okay, go ahead, Mr. McRae.
Okay, this is 401 Old Church Road, PLPZ 2023-131, final site plan special permit. Applicants requesting final site plan special permit approval to demolish portions of an existing athletic building to construct a 10,289 square foot addition, the result of which would further exceed 150,000 cubic feet in building volume on a 33.5 acre site located at 401 Old Church Road in the RA1 zone. Commission finds as required, the property came before the commission as a pre-application at the 11/10/22 public hearing under file PLPZ 22427. Per the applicant's counsel's narrative dated 4/3/23, the project will not result in any programmatic changes to any of the school's campuses. The proposed gymnasium renovation will not add a new venue to the school's campus, will not increase or enlarge the number of existing athletic teams, will not increase the number of practices or events that take place at the main campus, and will not result in an increase in the school's summer program usage. The applicant received a variance of allowable building height from the ZBA on 6/7/23 under PLZE 2023-23. The property is legally non-conforming as to gross floor area, and the applicant has submitted a construction phasing plan. Sewer Division issued comments dated 5/17, requesting the applicant submit a signed letter acknowledging receipt of comments. Engineering issued comments on 5/18, indicating resubmittal prior to zoning permit. ARC issued comments following their 5/17 meeting, indicating applicant is to return to ARC by digital submittal. Beta issued comments on 5/18, indicating no comments on the traffic study. Conservation issued comments 5/17/23 with concerns or recommendations to the project. The Wetlands Agency issued a permit 2023-023 on 4/24/23. And EMAC issued comments dated 3/29/23, providing recommendations to the plan. Therefore, a motion to approve the site plan noting the following. The construction phasing narrative shall be updated and be included as part of the site plan site development, soils and erosion control plans. Prior to zoning permit, the applicant shall digitally resubmit to ARC for final review. Per the Sewer Division comment, the applicant has submitted an acknowledgement letter dated 6/8/23. Mr. Wells, if you can assist me in the EV charger situation.
We're okay there.
The
Okay,
EV charger, the commission has requested that the applicant continue to evaluate further opportunities for electric vehicles charging stations.
Oh, okay, great. Okay, and I.
Then you
see
need to
app-
make two findings. Whereas the applicant is currently at a non-conforming FAR of 0.165 and is now being proposed to be reduced to 0.1649
Okay.
subsequent to the lot line revision approval or whatever they want to
Mhm.
call it, which changed the total lot area. Also, there is a slight increase in the minimum green area, which is also non-conforming, is slightly increasing to 66.6% versus the existing 66.4%.
It's green
Um,
area, not coverage, because we're in residential zone.
Correct. Patrick wanted us to note that, but it's green
Right.
area because we're in a residential zone. Yes. Okay,
Okay,
I think
got
those are, got it. And the other thing is that the commission has requested that the applicant during construction, the applicant be specifically aware of high traffic hours in the area and do their utmost to reduce interference with traffic circulation or to avoid interfering with optimal traffic circulation. However, staff wants to word that, but the bottom line is it gets really crazy when schools get out. So whatever they can
Okay,
do.
so
Okay.
it's a neighborhood thing, not just on site.
It's the street. And since this is a special permit, we can do that.
Okay, surrounding streets, okay.
Yeah, well, yeah, it's really just where they're on the street, where the construction vehicles are. And since it's a special permit, we can make that condition for the traffic. All right, do I have a second?
Second.
Mr. Wells? Yeah, I'm having trouble with your voice with the cold tonight. All righty, Mr. McRae, how do you vote?
Aye.
Ms. Jenkins?
Aye.
Mr. Lowe?
Aye.
Mr. Wells?
Aye.
Albin is also aye, and with that, the motion passes 5-0. And we go on to 206 SBA Property Owner LLC.
Okay, give me a second here. 206 Sound Beach Avenue, PLPZ 2023-052, final coastal site plan and special permit. Applicants requesting final site plan and special permit approval to renovate an existing single-story structure and reconstruction of the adjacent parking lot at 206 Sound Beach Avenue and 33 Arcadia Road in the LBR2 and COZ zones and the AE13 and X flood zones per section 6111 of the BZR and sections 22A90 and 22A96 of the Connecticut General Statutes. The commission finds as required, the property came before the commission as a pre-application on 12/6/22 on a public hearing file number PLPZ 2022-502. Zoning issue comments 6/13 indicating proposal meets the BZR. Sewer issue comments on 5/17 requesting the applicant submit a signed letter acknowledging receipt of comments. Engineering, the applicant submitted a drainage exemption dated 6/2/23. ARC issued comments following their 6/7/23 meeting indicating the applicant to return to ARC by digital submittal. The health department issued comments on 3/13/23 indicating no issues during P&Z review phase, but notes prior to submittal to the for building permits, the applicant is required to submit plans for the food service systems to the Department of Health for review and approval. Conservation issued comments stating 6/14/23 with recommendations to the project. Wetlands issued a permit needs questionnaire on 4/14 indicating no action required, and EMAC issued comments dated 6/14/23 providing recommendations to the plan. Therefore, motion to approve the site plan noting the following. Prior to zoning permit, the applicant shall digitally submit to ARC for final review. Per sewer division comments, the applicant has submitted an acknowledgement letter dated 4/17/23, and the applicant shall address any and all remaining staff or interdepartmental issues.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Mr. Levy has seconded. Mr. McRae, how do you vote?
Aye.
Mr. Levy?
Aye.
Mr. Wells?
Aye.
Ms. Jenkins,
Aye.
Albin is also aye, and with that, the motion passes 5-0. Okay, last one, folks.
Okay, we're skipping it. We're skipping Meadowcroft.
Well, we wanted to look at what were the conditions we put into the previous
Yeah,
approvals
okay.
regarding sports facilities, and if one person wants to put it off, we put it off.
Okay.
Um,
Okay.
You
I
know,
can.
we could have made it up.
No, we do, because we wanted to be consistent. We've done this before, and
Yeah.
it's the kind of thing is that somewhere down the line, it may come back to haunt us.
Yep.
And I think it covers the lighting, the music, the whole 9 yards. So.
Yep. Okay, so the next one is Freedom at One Smith.
One Smith Road, PLPZ 2023-193, final coastal site plan special permit. Applicants requesting modifications to the previously approved site plan special permit. Applications for PLPZ 2019-401 and 402. The modifications proposed to expand the addition to that existing house that is currently under construction and downsize the approved greenhouse in the AE 15 and AE 13 and X flood zones per section 6111 of the BZR and 22A 90, 22A of the Connecticut General Statutes. And where the total volume of all structures would exceed 150,000 cubic feet in the RA1 and COZ zones. Zoning issue comments on 615 indicating proposal meets the BZR. Sewer issue comments dated 6/13 requesting applicants submit a signed letter acknowledging receipt of P&Z comments. Deep issue comments on 614 indicating no comment to the proposal. Engineering issue comments on 614 indicating approval for zoning building permit. Wetlands issued a permit needs questionnaire dated 24/23 indicating a declaratory ruling for the geothermal wells. Conservation issue comments on 6/15/23 indicating recommendations to the proposal, and EMAC issue comments on 6/15/23 indicating recommendations to the proposal. Therefore, motion to approve the application noting the following. I'm going to make sure I got this one right. Final revised landscape plan shall be submitted to P&Z Commission staff for review. And prior to the permit, the height of the proposed cupola shall be prior to zoning permit, the height of the proposed cupola shall be reduced to conform with section 6/127F. And the applicant shall address any and all remaining staff or interdepartmental issues. Are we good with the landscape? How's that
I
stated?
think we should say, you say that part again, Nick?
Final revised landscape plan shall be submitted for P&Z Commission staff review.
And applicant shall seek to fully, an applicant shall submit such fully integrated with the drainage plan, because the question that Jackie raised was that the drainage plan and the landscaping plan didn't really fit together, so it
Is
shall
it
be
on
fully.
this one too? I know that was on the Meadowcroft. Is
No,
it this
I
one as well?
have the note on this one.
Okay, so it's both of them. Okay.
Yeah, no, first, yeah. I have the note on this one, so it must be the cupola you've got. And further, did you say that the applicant shall confirm that the FAR will remain at 0.15, which is legally non-conforming, due to a variance granted by the Zoning Board of Appeals.
Okay.
Because they can't up it. And everything else is good except for the FAR. Do I have a second? And it's okay. Mr. Levy, how do you vote?
Aye.
Wells,
Aye.
McRae,
Aye.
Yeski,
Aye.
and Albin is also aye. And with that, the motion passes 5-0.
Minutes.
Who would like to do the minutes?
Nick would.
Yeah, you want to do
No,
this real
he
quick?
can't. No, you're not allowed to do the
You make the
minutes.
motion.
Okay, Mr. Wells. No, you're not, you're not seated anymore. Can a
Yeah, I'm
regular
not
make
seated
it?
anymore.
Can a regular make the motion?
I make a motion to do the minutes.
Okay, I hereby move approval of the minutes of the 2022 minutes of March 29, April 12th, April 26, and May 10. Do I have a second?
Second.
McRae, how do you vote?
Of course, I'm going to say aye.
Levy,
I don't know, aye.
Lowe,
Aye.
Yeski.
Aye.
All righty. Thank you very much.
Almost in 2022 on
vote?
the minutes, by the way. We're getting close.
Did you vote, Madam Chair, on this?
Oh,
one?
no, I
Marguerite,
forgot
you vote
again.
on
Albin
those?
is also aye. Yeah, I
Thank
don't know
you.
what's, yeah, okay. I'm laughing, ready to go eat dinner.